Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first session of the Yellow King. This is a system we've been looking forward to running for a very long time. Certainly, I have, and hopefully, it's going to be a wonderful triumph, which I especially hope because I finished writing this scenario a little under an hour ago. So, results may vary, but we'll see. We have rather a large cast for this one, but before I get to introducing them and talking about the system and the setting and all that wonderful stuff, let's do the usual promo nonsense. You're watching this on either YouTube or Twitch. If you look in the video description below, you will see links to the other sites. You'll see links to social media, to Patreon, to Discords, to the merch store, to all the typical stuff you might expect from people who do this sort of thing. Check those out if you're interested. We also have a StreamYard referral link down there now. You can get a bit of a saving on StreamYard, and we can get a little bit of a saving on StreamYard if you like our setup. Maybe use that link. Who knows? Magic could happen. We run a number of campaigns weekly and fortnightly at the moment. Mondays is alternating between We Deal in Lead and Warhammer. Wednesdays is our kind of flagship campaign of Symbaroum that's been running since the start of the channel. And Thursdays is now this, on a fortnightly basis, The Yellow King, a reality warping alternate history cosmic horror role-playing game from Pelgrane Press. Yeah. We also do one-shots, various systems, about monthly. The next one is on Sunday, June the 9th, and will be us playing the wonderful little indie TTRPG Cloud Empress. There we go. That's all my promo. Out of the way. Wonderful. So before I start bringing people immediately on, I will just give the tiniest little blurb on how the Yellow King works, and I'm going to put some of that stuff behind a kind of veil of mystery. And I'll put some other stuff of it out there. So as I said, the Yellow King is a kind of cosmic horror role-playing game. Its big kind of selling point is that it has kind of 4 sequential settings that I won't really get into too much, other than to mention that that's what it has. The first one of those, the one that we'll be playing tonight and for the foreseeable future, is called Paris, and is set in the Belle Epoque Paris of 1895 in a very recognizable, close to our history version of that. Only, since it's cosmic horror, some odd things might start to happen. I can't comment on it. Maybe I'm just going to run something about the cultural impact of Paris in 1895. Who knows? Maybe nothing will happen at all. But it might do. So expect that. But yeah, that's the rough thing of Yellow King. It's based on the gumshoe system, but we'll get into all the rules and mechanics as we go. I won't do a big preamble about those. But without any further ado, then, let's introduce our player characters. All of the player characters are students, various arts students in the kind of university college system of Paris in 1895. So they're kind of a type, but there's fascinating differences between them, as we will find out. And we're going to find that out first with our first player of John. There we go. Hello, John. How are you doing
Matt.
today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yes, I am good, if frazzled. Are you excited about the Yellow King? And also, why don't you tell us a little bit about your character, Blaze?
Yes, and also, Blaze is a currently a portrait painter student, earning a little bit of money on the side as well. He came into the arts. It's basically as a hobby when he was a medical student. He basically, as was actually quite common in the era, he used to sneak down to the morgue and draw people in the morgue because they didn't move, and it was good to have a record of them.
Yes, and this is in the days before that kind of thing was, and photography of that kind of thing was routine. So it's quite a natural, a common study of anatomy through your various interests. Yes.
Anyway, he decided to pack that in and become a full-time artist. He's born and raised in Paris, a little bit shy and retiring. That's the main crux of it.
Absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure we'll learn far more about Blaze as the evening wears on. Our second player for this campaign is Holly, fresh from having joined us from Cincinnati Chronicles. Holly's playing Marie, I believe Marie Francoise. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't fit it all on the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, Marie-Francoise Renette.
Well, are you looking forward to Yellow King, Holly? Everyone's just going to say yes, man. And tell us a little bit about Marie.
Okay, so Marie is a fairly young daughter of a merchant farmer, and so her dad owns the farm rather than actually being a worker on it, which means that she's fairly well-to-do. And that farm will be slightly outside of Paris, so kind of countryside-esque living. So she became a landscape painter because that was kind of a thing that a fancy daughter would do, that looks fairly respectable as well. And that's why she's come to Paris, is to try and further her painting skills and potentially prospects as well, because there's lots of other artsy types here, and artsy types who are reasonably well off as well, because
and perhaps eligible.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, probably was fairly encouraged by her dad to go off to Paris and find someone else of a reasonable standing. Yeah.
Then as now someone from the countryside going to the big city to improve both their career and social prospects.
Yeah, exactly. And she thinks very highly of herself. Primarily because she hasn't been crushed yet by the city. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, I doubt that will happen. So with that in mind, let's bring on our third player. It's Alex, who joins us all the way from, you haven't seen him in Blade Runner before. Alex is playing Theodore, and I'm fascinated to know, Alex, whether Theodore goes by Teddy or Theo. Because both of those seem like supremely 1800s shortenings.
Theodore is a character of some self-affectation and conceit, I think. So I imagine he would insist on Theodore, and sort of find a sort of a casual shortening of it, somewhat of a disrespect. So Theodore is a student of architecture, and has a fairly rigid, I'd say, materialistic, rational, scientific kind of mindset perspective on the world. And so it will be interesting to see how I decide to have him react to certain events which may or may not occur. And someone had to represent the sort of pompous Englishman stereotype in this cast, which I'm willing to fall on my sword for the course.
Absolutely. And I don't know what you mean by having some challenges ahead of you with having a rational mind. It's just, it's just Paris. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So there we go. Let's move on to our next player. It is Steve. You know him, you love him, you've seen him a lot on the channel. Steve's playing a character called Mark. And Steve, why don't you tell us all about Mark? Notice how I've given up asking people if they're looking forward to this. Partly because Alex in private chat said he'd say no.
Wow.
Yeah, I had this whole line prepped and you were like, oh,
wow,
skipped it.
Wow.
Yeah. And now I've stolen it, essentially.
Yeah.
So, fuck me, I guess.
Yeah, basically.
Yes. My swearing was outside the first 10 minutes of the stream. We're safe. YouTube, we're safe. Steve, tell us about Mark.
Sure, yes. So Mark is... Well, so usually, I've tended to play quite introverted, quite scientific characters previously on the channel, much against my own type. So I'm delighted this time around to be playing a really gregarious, friendly, open character, cheerful. Mark is from quite a well-off family. He's in this sort of art scene, and he's sure he's a student. He's, I don't know, attending the establishments to learn. But he's much more. He's not really. He's a dabbler. He's not technically necessarily great. He's certainly not trying to make a living of it. He's interested, but yes, he's flitting around the scene. Essentially, Mark's character type in this game is Muse. So we'll be encouraging others and sort of living vicariously, I guess, in that way.
Yeah, much more of like a dilettante and
Yes,
kind of social butterfly / perhaps future patron of these things, rather than actually an artist yourself. Wonderful. Our next player, because we're carrying on adding them, folks. Let me tell you, this is the most players we've ever had on a thing, I think. Our next player is Inga. Recurring player on the channel of various things. And Inga is playing the wonderfully named Howie Drummond, which, and I'm not biased, like I'm just saying that's definitely my favorite of these names because Howie is an amazing name for these kind of games. That's all I'm saying.
Amazing.
Well,
I don't care if you're not going to ask me, Matt. I'm going to tell you that I'm really excited for this game.
Okay.
And I'm doing great today. Thank you very much.
Good.
Aggressive.
And you can
I
expect
like
that
it.
kind of brashness from Howie,
Nice.
who I think is the furthest has come from his furthest flung character. He is from the United States of America, and he has come traveling to Paris. He is more of a writer than anything else. He's kind of attracted to Paris partly from the sort of big, bold ideas and the sort of slight, I think from his eyes, the slightly kind of exotic excitement of like new lands and new ideas and things. And also some mysterious scribblings in his diaries, which are somewhat unexplained, that have kind of led him towards Paris. But yeah, that's kind of Howie.
Nice. And the end of your thing coincided with the starting of the great meowing, which will I'm sure continue until, well, he'll definitely give up soon. Cats notoriously have very little patience for irritating repetitive behavior. So there we go. And in case you thought, wow, 5 players is a lot, Matt, are you sure that's not too many for this game? Say hello to Sam. Yes, I think this is our first 6-player thing on the channel. Possibly, maybe there was a one shot or something. I can't remember. But yeah, Yellow King actually recommends 7, crazily enough. But definitely no more than 6 people ever want to roleplay with me. So we're having to settle for 6. But the delightful 6th person in was Sam. Sam is playing Alex Rojas. Sam, why don't you tell us all about Alex?
So Alex Rojas is from Spain. He's moved to Paris fairly recently from Barcelona. He's a little bit all over the place. He's a poet. I mean, he's trying to be a poet. And he is very much in the kind of radical political sphere. And that is partly why he's moved to Paris. Paris, famous for revolutions and revolutionary people, but also, yeah, good place to learn, good place to be in the kind of arts at this time. So that's what's drawn him here, and I think he's excited to see a bit more of the world. Very curious about the city, about the people, and looking forward to hopefully getting a bit better at poetry, maybe.
Absolutely. And one more thing before we dive on in, and I think Inga alluded to this, and maybe only Inga alluded to it so far. That was a sentence that went all over the place. Each of these characters has something that occurred to them that slightly opened their minds, if only slightly, to the possibility, be quiet, of other things. Of things happening outside of their ken in the world, right? That maybe there are secret or mysterious things occurring that they might not be able to understand. And let's just go around the characters one by one. You don't need to give full details of them, but just a general notion of what those might be. And since Inga went over hers already. Let's hop in with Inga first, just so Inga can just repeat that and just give us that sense.
Yeah, so I mean, how he is a writer, predominantly an essayist, but has always kept a diary or written records of some description, which he's always tried to keep quite private, even potentially locked away. And started noticing some sort of mysterious scribblings in the diaries that that were definitely not of his own hand, and not that he remembers adding, that have kind of led him into kind of interesting things, not necessarily particularly supernatural or weird and wonderful, but definitely things that have like drawn him to some of these ideas and ended up bringing him to Paris, and certainly been of interest, but also like very unusual in terms of their origin.
Slightly unsettling, it must be, one has to imagine. And let's go clockwise with these. So let's hop in with Sam next. What has occurred to Alex that kind of led him off the rational path, even if only slightly?
Alex has been hallucinating recently while he reads, and he recognizes that he's hallucinating, and he's reading something that he didn't think he was going to be reading, something that he doesn't believe is really there. But when he kind of snaps out of it, he can never quite remember what it was, but always is a distressing experience when it happens.
I personally hate it when that happens. How about Blaze, John?
Well, I mentioned that Blaze started painting the already deceased, and then obviously as he left the hospital and went to art school, he started painting more alive people. But unfortunately, there's been a very strange pattern of his previously alive models then becoming dead, and it's sort of putting him off painting a bit, and it's very peculiar.
Yes, that sounds at least something that would make you doubt your career choice. Steve, how about Mark?
Yeah, so Mark, just a few weeks ago, in fact, he thought he caught sight of his brother, Jacques, who was sort of standing under a streetlight. Mark, to put it this way, Mark really wasn't expecting to see Jacques again.
Ever? Yeah. Lovely. Holly, what has happened to Marie?
So Marie was painting a landscape of her home, as she has often done in the past. And then once she'd finished it and was turning around again after like stepping back a few paces just to check the lighting and the shading, it had turned into a nightmarish horrorscape with the full like blood raining from the sky, nightmarish creatures flying around, that kind of thing, you know, which, yeah, off-putting.
Yeah, I can imagine. Probably not something you hung up on your bedroom wall afterwards.
No.
And so finally, Alex, our staunchest rationalist, and I mean that for Alex as well as for Theodore. What has happened to Theodore that perhaps unsettled his worldview a little?
So I think Theodore was simply out for a stroll one day through the streets of Paris, and I sort of glimpsed a building out of the corner of his eye, which sort of immediately drew his eye to it, because especially as an architect, there was something wrong about it. The angles weren't right. Like they didn't all. It's almost like it was sort of warped out of any comprehensible shape you would expect things to be in, while in every other way appearing to be a totally banal, building. But upon deciding he would get closer to it, or try to find it again later, every time he has tried, he's been completely unable to locate it, or to recall exactly where it was, or he thinks he does, but when he gets there, it's just not there.
And I can imagine it's sort of that like double-edged sword, right? Of being more rational in a story like this. That like you probably have kind of like stronger like mental shields against the gentle pattering, but when something actually undeniably supernatural occurs, you are going to crumble like
Yes. Yeah.
so much tracing paper.
There will be a significant amount of denial and cognitive dissonance. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful stuff. Okay, well, there we go, folks. Those are our characters for the Yellow King. And without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. It is a blustery and overcast March day in Paris. Pedestrians gather their overcoats around them, giving up on the notion of umbrellas lest they spiral away into a grey sky. Carriages trudge on regardless, though for a good hour at midday, a rogue horse galloped up and down the Rue Bonaparte in a panic at the raging winds until the driver managed to corral it with the help of a group of shouting students. This growing storm can barely be felt in the attic rooms of the École des Beaux-Arts, where a well-renowned professor, painter and sculptor leads a group of promising students in an anatomical workshop. A young woman stands as model near the window, high up enough from the street that there is no danger of passers-by glimpsing her naked form. The students sit in rows on the sloping floor in front of their easels, the most inexperienced at the front and the relative veterans near the back. To one side, a single student expertly shapes the model in a sculpture of rough clay, and among them strides the professor, offering mostly harsh criticism while absent-mindedly tugging at his moustaches. So, there are two characters who are definitely in this scene, and just for ease of categorization, I'm going to put them both on the right-hand side of the screen. It is Blaise and Marie, the two painters of the group. However, I think I would be happy also if Mark wished to be involved, because we don't know what classes Mark takes. Mark is just a relatively talentless social butterfly. So perhaps Mark takes the painting classes. So, Steve, do you want to be in this scene?
Sure, yes. Yeah, why not?
Why not? Why not, indeed. So the professor, whose name is Jean-Léon Gérôme, is walking around the class, as I say, offering pretty harsh but always very accurate criticism. Which it is sort of up to you exactly how you take that on board or not. And let's hop in and see how one of our characters is finding this. Holly, how is Marie finding this kind of atelier or workshop? Because obviously your specialty is landscape, but Jerome wants to teach anatomy first and seems to think it will help you regardless.
Yes, she's definitely more unsure about anatomy. Primarily because she isn't as practiced with it, but is still quite keen to learn. Primarily because all of the other people are, and she wants to fit in. Like it's less of a I want to learn this new skill, and more I want to try and impress everyone with how well I can do this thing I'm brand new at. Yeah,
absolutely, and obviously a lot of the same skills transfer. And in fact, one of the reasons you're delighted to be taught by Professor Jerome is that he is known for both. He does a lot of anatomical work, even in his landscapes. He's a real kind of multi-talented painter. In fact, and we will get onto the historical aspects of this at some point, I'm sure. In the 1880s, he was arguably the most famous painter in the world. So it's quite a catch to end up in his classes.
Oh, definitely.
By contrast, then, perhaps, how is Blaise finding this workshop, John?
Blaise is struggling and trying not to look like he's struggling. He is slightly anxiously trying to get as close of an artistic likeness to the model as possible, while not looking too much like the model. He's working in charcoal, and he's pretty sure that charcoal subjects are safe, but he's not sure. And he's currently making an absolute mess of it because like his arm is too tight, his hand is kind of shaking in ways it shouldn't. But he's also trying his best to act cool, which is making everything worse.
Okay. Well then, Steve, dare I ask, how is Mark doing at this?
I think so. Mark is familiar with, in terms of culture, many other artists in terms of the way that they would draw anatomy and form and so on. So he has that. He's seen all of. He's well acquainted with other works.
He's seen people.
He's seen people. He's seen art.
Yeah.
And it surely must only be a matter of. So he's trying his best. I think technically it's okay, but there's no spirit there. There's just it's a bit sort of robotic, I guess, in terms of sort of form and flow. Yeah. So
fair enough. Well, from your descriptions, then it sounds like your estimations of your relative experience would probably leave Mark on the very front row of this class. But it sounds like maybe Blaze and Marie also kind of doubt their talents enough to not be too far behind. Maybe 2 or 3 rows behind as they paint through. There's probably about 60 individuals in the room, so it's not small. And basically, this is how the classes worked. Don't at me. This is genuine history. The closer you get to the front, the smaller a part of the model you are meant to be drawing. With the strict instructions, and I'm not making this up, that the front row only draw the bust. So you're pretty confined in the front couple of rows as to what you're drawing, trying to get basic principles of anatomy down correctly. The professor, as I said, Professor Jerome, walks around to your various pieces. As he walks past you, Marie, he sort of lets out a tutting noise, and he reaches out, and he uses as kind of like a teaching prompt. He has like a paintbrush that he uses to point at various parts and occasionally tap people to emphasize his point. And he kind of looks out and says, "Form is good, but there's no flow. This is not a tree, Mizrune. There is flow. There is curve. Pay attention to it."
Yes, monsieur. Yes, monsieur. And she hurriedly tries to alter the shading slightly to make it seem a little bit more flowy.
There's more dimension to the form. Yeah. He walks on past you and past Blaze, who is let's say right next to you. Blaze is your friend, and he kind of leans and kind of peers and says, "What are these? What are these?" He leans forward and kind of taps, not painfully, but definitely sharply on your knuckles of your hands as you're trying to do it. "What are these shakes? What are these shakes, monsieur? You are a painter. The art, it is in here." He taps the brush quite hard on your chest and says, "You need to listen to it and then put the paint on the canvas accordingly." He's reaching out and kind of grasping your hand and smoothing your strokes of the charcoal at the edges of what you're doing, and says, "If you don't believe you are a painter, monsieur, you will never be one. No shakes."
Yes, monsieur. Sorry.
He strides round and then walks along the front row, reaching Mark after several other criticisms of people alongside you, glances over your shoulder and says, "Oh, you do not lack for enthusiasm. You have a long way to go."
Yes, I recognize that, but I feel privileged to be able to take that journey with you as my guide.
He shakes his head slightly and lets out an exasperated noise and walks on. The atelier goes on for another hour or so and then wraps up at the appointed time. It's very late afternoon. The sky, obviously, I said it's March. The sky is very much starting to darken. The storm that was promised is kind of pattering away on the windows. And as everyone packs away their easels and their gear, the model has gone several minutes ago. The professor kind of taps gently on his desk to get people's attention and says, "Satisfactory, but keep practicing. No one here is up to any standard of salon or graduation yet. Keep practicing every day." Very well. Ms. Rune, Monsieur Pare, remain behind.
Yes, monsieur.
I am afraid to say I have not made a mistake. He did not ask for Monsieur Vuillet to stay behind.
That's fine.
As everyone else sort of files out, you're left in the room with the professor, who kind of packs up various things into a small bag and kind of makes a kind of noise, almost as if you were a pet, honestly, and walks out of the room and through to his nearby office. Said office or study at the school it's a smaller room than you expected, but it is and it's also fairly Spartan. It has a few shelves on it on which rest a few Far Eastern antiquities and pieces of old armor. One corner is taken up with pinned up or easel mounted practice works, all of which seem to have the motif of a woman either at the bottom of or emerging from a well. And as we will find the case, it'll often be quite clear whether a character I'm using is a character from history or a character made up from this, largely from whether or not I have one of these. So this is, let's get everyone along the top there. Sorry, trying to find something. Yeah, this is Jean-Léon Giraud. He is a real person. And is described in the book as looking like an elderly Edgar Allan Poe, which I think is probably quite accurate. He indicates for you to sit down on a couple of stools, essentially. Yes. Settle in. Oh. You know what? I have already made an error and will retcon something. He also asked for Ms. Hilton to join you, who was the... remember at the beginning I said that one student seemed to be allowed to be making a sculpture? This is Miss Hilda. She's also your friend. She is a... well, we'll get to a full description of her later. But the three of you are now in there. Well, I hope you found the atelier instructive. I know the work isn't perhaps what you wish to focus on, but the principles it teaches are more important than those notions. And you are, all of you, improving somewhat. But that is not why you are here. Matter of more, I suppose, bureaucratic. And I felt that you may be well placed. Well, I know that you associate with a group of other students down at Pierre's little watering hole, and that some of those friends are known to be silver-tongued and cosmopolitan. Monsieur Vuillet, for one. And together with your moderate knowledge of the arts, I have a little job for you. Well, an errand. I suppose job would imply payment. Is that of any interest?
Of course, yes. We're happy to assist in whatever way you desire.
Yes.
Laura kind of looks over at both of you and gives kind of a slightly sparkling smile and says, well, obviously that depends on the manner of the request, Professor. He fixes her with a kind of like slight narrowing of the eyes as she's... Laura often gives over the impression of being nothing but polite and genial and charming, while also being perhaps a little bit cheeky for these times and this place. Yes, well, there is a previously unknown trove of medieval and Renaissance art found underneath the Hôpital Saint-Louis, some kind of storage room, apparently tucked away for decades. No one seems to know where it has come from, but some labourer or other stumbled over it some weeks ago. The administrator has let it be known that this trove is up for either sale or donation, and as you might suspect, I have a deep personal wish that these hidden treasures should go to this very school. I would assume you would agree with this notion?
Oh, of course, of course. That would only be proper.
Quite. Well, the school has agreed to provide a currently unclear amount of funds for the purchase, but a precise number needs to be agreed, and perhaps needs to be agreed to the detriment of competing buyers, though no doubt we should also stress the cultural value that we can provide these works ahead of passing through a dealer's hands or sitting in some museum vault. Here is a number I would suggest to start with. He scrawls on a piece of paper and passes it over to you, though we would be open to revision depending on further examination of the pieces. Who is taking the piece of paper with the number on? Then it's Laura, who reaches out and grabs it, and her eyes kind of widen a little bit slightly as she tips it to you. It is quite a large amount of francs. The woman's name, the administrator, is Cadine Barreau. If you are agreeable, I will send a message that you will visit Saint Louis in the morning. Feel free to take more of Pierre's rabble with you if you think it will help. And also try to catalogue the pieces, whether or not your negotiations succeed. But please, make them succeed. Oh, and this is obviously a significant favour to both myself and the school. Neither will forget that, and I will do what I can to ensure some work of yours is submitted under consideration to the next viable salon I am attached to. Do you feel that is fair?
I think that's perfectly fair. Thank you very much, Monsieur.
That is very fair. Getting into a reputable... if we're not aware, by the way, a salon is essentially an art exhibition at this stage in history. And getting in on one that Jerome is involved with, that it's honestly way more than either of you deserve. Laura, maybe. She's very good.
Okay.
Is there any thought of, well, the painter, the provenance, or?
That is why they need cataloguing. Obviously, if you cannot identify the pieces on the site, then you'll have to take notes and return to the school, the library, whatever you need to do. Just please do try to make sure they don't fall into someone else's hands. They will make the decision they make, I suppose.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
That is all. Let me know. He goes back to some kind of diary on his desk.
Cool. Well, we'll scurry out, I'm assuming.
I'll scurry out, but perhaps linger slightly too long to have a look at the paintings on the wall.
I mean, they are just practice works, but they're exceptional, obviously. Okay. You depart the school for the evening, and now I don't want to tell you where you would go, but you are very much regulars at your local drinking establishment. It's called Le Vaugras. It is on the Rue Bonaparte, the same street as the school in Saint-Germain-des-Prés. And it has a florid-faced, cleft-nosed proprietor known to all simply as Pierre, who provides shockingly cheap wine and spirits and simple food to a clientele composed half of art students, half of custodial and menial staff at the school. And this is generally where you spend most of your time when not at the school. Also, specifically, it's where you meet up with your friends who are the other player characters. So, I'm not telling you to go there.
Yeah, well, I was literally about to say to Blaze, he is absolutely right. You do need to relax a little, darling. Would you like to come have a drink?
I think that sounds like a very good idea, Murray.
Of course, of course. The absinthe is on you.
And
oh, you're serious?
And Laura says, "It sounds like we've got some very interesting things to share."
Yes, and I'm very excited to see what has been unearthed.
Okay. Let us go to Le Vaugras then, where you enter and swiftly see a table around which are 5 individuals. I did not miscount. There is an extra NPC as well. But the 4 player characters who haven't, and Mark, I suppose, the 3 player characters and Mark who haven't been in so far, are sharing a drink together. And why don't you give us just a snapshot impression of the moment they walk in? What is your character likely to be doing? Are they taking a drink? Are they telling a joke? Are they laughing uproariously at said joke? Are they ignoring the others and working on a poem? What are they doing? What are they likely to be doing? And we'll leap on Steve first. What is Mark doing the moment they enter the door?
Oh, almost certainly Mark is stood up and halfway through a terribly amusing story that he is, miming and playing various characters in, and just enjoying the atmosphere and the attention, I think.
Absolutely. How about Howie?
As I say, potentially like chatting to Mark, probably enjoying Mark's story, I guess, and wondering what Blaze and Marie clearly got into trouble for if they've been asked to, hang back at the end of class, and looking forward to hearing that story. But enjoying a drink and enjoying the stories.
Absolutely. How about Theodore?
I think Theodore is probably sort of slightly off to one side, and maybe sort of sipping a brandy and sort of just sort of people watching with a vaguely wry look of disdain on his face, and it's hard to tell whether that's in reference to the people or the brandy.
Nice. And how about Alex?
I'm gonna say Alex is probably already, by the looks of it, a few drinks in, and is listening to Mark, but is also kind of half listening, half scribbling something down in a notebook, like occasionally thinking, occasionally kind of turning back to Mark and having a chuckle at how the story's going.
Excellent. And the 5th person at their table, for anyone interested, is a very young gentleman called Hildred Castaigne. He is a traveling youth from New York. On one of his first days in Paris, he managed to strike out while attempting to flirt with Laura Hilton. But the young lady nevertheless took a like to the charming teenage bon vivant and introduced him to many other students. He has no seeming artistic talents or inclinations of his own, but is certainly appreciative of all forms of Parisian culture, not to mention quite free with his not inconsiderable money around those who treat him well. Pierre and the other regulars have taken to him for obvious reasons, and in the last few months, he's almost become an odd mascot-like figure for the establishment. And those are the people you're with, and obviously Laura is with you as well. I will hand it over to you to introduce the story to the other players.
Here they are. They're the troublemakers. Come on, what happened after class then?
Well, for a start, please, if you would, furnish us with some drinks to set the atmosphere, as it were, because we have some news. Cool. So we'll get some drinks on the table, and then Marie's gonna just start gushing about how they'd found a bunch of new paintings under this hospital, and how we have been chosen to go and inspect them. Clearly, we are trusted, and we're talking a sizable collection here, worth quite a lot of money, that should obviously go to the school. But also it means that we get to look at some spectacular paintings.
They don't know who the masters were yet, but they want us to examine them. But after they've done that, they want us to actually negotiate for them. And with this, I sort of look directly at Mark. I don't. I've never really negotiated for that much money before.
How much are we talking?
Laura leans forward and kind of pushes the scrap of paper along the table with a couple of fingers and says, "This is your ballpark, Vuillet."
Well, that should give us some room for manoeuvre, I think. Yes, that should be straightforward, I think.
But the old man wants us...
You're negotiating, you don't even know what these bots are yet. You've got a number, but you don't even know what you're negotiating for. This is a bad business proposition from the beginning. We got to get in there and see what we're looking at first.
Oh,
fellas.
Listen, the negotiation, it's what you're dealing with is not necessarily so much of a factor. It's how you play it.
The interesting thing in all this, of course, is that Marie is actually the character with the negotiation ability. So
she's just sitting there contentedly, just watching them all, just
listening to them all talk
Yeah.
absolute shit.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean in the 1800s, a bunch of men are talking about the best way to do something that a woman is skilled in without asking her?
Who
That's so historically inaccurate.
Not just historically, let's be real.
Yeah.
Laura also chips in with, and the old man says we should emphasize that this should go to the school. And who knows, maybe that will carry some weight. Or maybe it's just going to be about the numbers.
How closely are they going to be looking at this? That's a lot of money for us to be throwing around. Maybe there's a bit of an opportunity in there somewhere for us. Some poor
does that include
students.
the negotiator's fee? Good point.
Exactly.
Alex.
A bit of commission. I feel like that would be fair.
I would rather not steal from someone who could potentially or will set us up with a small appointment at a salon.
No one said steal. I asked if this is part of the negotiator's fee. That would be all above board.
Would the fee be
Sounds like there is none.
negotiated already? Or are you deciding upon the fee for yourself, dear Harry?
Did the number include it? I don't know. I'm just asking. What did you negotiate? What we were negotiating is what I'm asking, I guess. Maybe
No,
not.
We did not decide
Okay.
upon a fee. I figured that would be improper.
You know your professor.
Maybe the people who have it would agree to some kind of fee if we got them a good offer. We're in charge of that stuff.
Laura says there's an awful lot of we in this, Alex. And I do rather think that the three students of the professor who do not wish for a finder's fee to ruin our futures might be the ones to decide the matter.
Well, it's up to you. At the end of the day, I guess it's up to you. But just a thought. Don't let them take advantage of you. You're doing the hard work here. You're like you're helping them out. They should help you out.
Oh, is this merely a concern over workers' rights, Rojas?
Always a concern. Always a concern.
Hmm.
The man's got a point, but I'm along for the ride if that's allowed. This sounds like an interesting little situation. Some random artwork found in just some random guy found a big trove of priceless art. That sounds pretty cool. I'm along for the ride if that's all this is, but didn't hurt to ask.
Sorry to interject. You seem to be all terribly excited by the prospect of this priceless artwork, the provenance of which is completely unknown to you. Why all the excitement? For all you know, you'll be peddling the school's money on utter dreck.
But that's the excitement. It's the unknown, Theodore. That's the exciting thing.
Hildred leans forward and says, "Yeah, you've got to be excited about this kind of thing, Theo, right? This kind of the mystery of discovery. It's why I came to Paris."
Some mysteries are more interesting than others. There's some miscellanea buried in some croft or whatnot. I mean, really. Why all this noise? I admit I'm curious, but you seem all to be rather jumping the gun, no?
Well, we won't know until we look, will we?
Yes, well, you could make that argument about everything lurking behind every gutter drain, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. You're in the spirit now.
I feel you've rather missed the point, but never mind.
Laura rolls her eyes and says, "Well, Russell's spectacular English Imperial Reserve aside, that's a matter for the morning. Who wants more drinks?"
Yes,
On that
please.
we
A
can
round is
agree.
on someone else.
And with that, you spend the rest of the evening in at least moderate revelry. So I'm assuming that everyone is happy to come along in the morning, head to the Hôpital Saint-Louis, and see what's what. Just out of interest, what kind of state are we all in the following morning?
Better than you'd think, I think, is for Howie.
Yeah. I was about to say, considering the amount of absinthe imbibed yesterday evening, Marie's looking disturbingly proper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Mark is fairly practiced with enjoying himself, but not overdoing it to the stage that would impinge upon the following day's social activities.
Absolutely.
I think Theodore's reserve would extend to not drinking an improper amount. So,
absolutely. So as you find your way through the streets of Paris, whether together or individually, towards Saint Louis, it is an area called Belleville. It's a working class neighborhood arranged around a large hill. It's a bastion of radical sentiment where much blood was spilled during the last violent days of the Commune. And you find yourself walking along a road with a very decent view of Saint Louis. It's a slightly smaller institution than the main Parisian hospitals, and the history of it only goes back to the Renaissance around 300 years or so. But it's fairly well attended and fairly well appointed. Let's say none of you have been here before, just to avoid any prior things. And you round off this street and towards the entrance. And you find yourselves all there, let's say it's a relatively early hour of the morning, perhaps 9:30 or so, and you've all gathered outside. How are you going to go about this?
Well, I think we should all just head in as a group and announce ourselves. We're proper. We already have an appointment set up, so let's go find someone who can direct us to this treasure trove.
Absolutely. So just walking in as a group and perhaps finding someone at the front desk and
Yeah, exactly.
just presenting yourselves. Yeah, absolutely.
The professor gave us a name, so probably ask to speak to. I've got Kadim Barrow.
Kadim Barrow. Yeah. Well, it sounds like Marie is the one to take the initiative on this. So Marie can go in and ask the person on the front desk, kind of like says, "Oh, yes, I think you're expected. What? Please wait here a second," and wanders off. You can hear in the distance the typical sounds of a hospital, the sort of murmurings of a large civic building, and it being a hospital, it has to be said, the occasional distant cry of distress. And before long, a woman comes through to meet you. She seems immediately flustered and distracted. She's kind of quite sort of average looking with bobbed brown hair. And she walks up to you and says, "From Professor Jerome from the school?"
Yes, indeed. Yes, I believe we're expected.
"You are. There are a lot of you. Very well. Please follow me. I'm the hospital administrator. My name, well, you know my name. It's Kadim Barrow. Please, after me." She leads you through the corridors of the hospital. And she definitely seems to be more put out by the hassle of arranging a sale or bequeathment than considering it any kind of boon to the place. She takes you through corridors until you reach what is clearly sort of her office. In it is already another individual waiting there. An individual who looks like this. She says, "Please, I don't have enough chairs. Gather round, and I will answer questions, and then perhaps we can have a viewing of sorts or of something. This I hope this isn't awkward. This is Monsieur Louis Marcy." The man kind of like turns in a chair and nods with a sort of, not a cold smile, but certainly a fairly reserved one to all of you. Monsieur Marcy is here negotiating on behalf of another potential buyer for the material. It just makes more sense to have you all here at once. It takes up less time. First, are there any questions about the pieces, I suppose?
Well, I would personally quite like to know sort of how many pieces we're talking, and do we know sort of what state they're in?
Yes, there are, I think, in total around 35 framed pieces, so not inconsequential. They seem to be in decent state to me. I am far from an art expert, but the room seems to have been. Well, the hospital was built almost 300 years ago. I suppose it's bound to have nooks and crannies no one uses anymore. But it has only seemingly recently been opened for the first time in a long time. A long time.
Okay, and you'd say that you have not had these professionally appraised yet?
I did not even know the room existed until 2 weeks ago.
Excellent. Well, it's a good thing we're here. We have some expertise.
That is good. Is there
Can
any?
I point to the other guy and say, if you don't mind me asking, who you representing?
I represents my family, antiquarians. We have a shop and gallery, Maison Marcy. You may have heard of it. Anyone with, say, art history or painting, or any actual artistic investigative ability, you have heard of the Maison Marcy. It's an antiquarian store. Kadeen says, are there any other questions from anyone else?
Was the hospital always built as a hospital, or
Yes. And to answer your follow-up question, I have no idea. As I say, we did not even know that this room existed until 2 weeks ago.
Very well. Well, I personally would love to see these paintings.
Absolutely. Monsieur Marcy? He nods genially and stands up with the rest of you. As you leave her office and you walk kind of down further corridors and then downstairs into like a much cooler underground area, the hubbub, the general noise of the hospital sort of recedes behind you in the cool air. And you find yourself in an area that's clearly primarily, meant for mostly storage. You seem pretty far away from any kind of patients and the actual running of the hospital, and finally end up in a room where several old cabinets and storage shelves have been pulled aside to reveal a battered wooden door that looks to be a century old or maybe more. The door is currently closed. Kadeen turns and says, well, here is where it was, apparently, all this time, and just stumbled across, apparently. Well, that's what I've been told. Well, shall we go in?
Yes, after you.
She nods and sort of struggles to open the door a bit. It has it does have a lock in it, but it doesn't. She isn't using a key. She's just kind of like hefting the heavy door up by a doorknob and kind of shoving it through, and it eventually gives and opens. And beyond that is a relatively smallish chamber. The interior of it is somewhat unremarkable. It has yellow stone walls, a small barred high window caked in as much dust and cobwebs as the rest of the room. The art pieces are mostly stacked against each other in several places around the chamber, including 2 on a desiccated wooden table against one wall. Yeah. And she kind of like waves for you to take a look.
Cool. Yeah. What kind of thing have we got, I guess?
Sure. Well, shall we move around the group and just see exactly what we're all kind of doing in this moment? I can imagine that Blaze and Marie are just immediately going to start like someone flipping through like someone in a vinyl store, essentially, is my mind of like looking at all these individual things. We've got 4 other people here who aren't particularly adept at being able to recognize any of this, and I'm interested to know what they're going to be doing. Certainly, like, you could examine more about the layout of the room. You can obviously talk to Kadeen or to Monsieur Macy, Macy for that matter. But what are the other people doing? Let's start with Theodore. You can also be looking at the painting.
I was going to say, so there's 2 ways I could go with this, because Theodore does have art history. as an
well,
investigative skill. So
you could
perhaps
definitely look.
able to help.
Okay. You could
Yeah.
definitely help. Yeah. Okay, then you are also looking through.
Yeah.
In that case, how about Howie?
I think sort of doing a bit of a taking in the general surroundings, but mostly maybe just trying to chat to Kadeen a bit and kind of, she seems a bit nervy, just trying to put her at ease a little bit and, be a bit of a friendly face. Probably talk about like not a whole lot of, she's not asking questions about the art or anything like that. Just a bit of general chatter and, how did this guy want to stumble across this or whatever? But yeah.
Sure. Yeah. That seems a valid question. Alex, how about you?
Alice is going to take a bit of a look around the room, try and get a sense of like what this room was, like just generally kind of survey the room, see what's going on, if there's anything else around here.
Yeah, anything more to notice or to
yeah,
seems reasonable. How about you, Mark?
I think Mark will be trying to chat sort of in a friendly fashion with Louis Marcy, just as a sort of I don't know really much about art, but isn't this fascinating? And basically kind of just trying to open the conversation of why his family is particularly interested in these arts. Does he think they have a link to his family, that sort of thing?
Absolutely, and that fits in very well with at least one of your skills as well. Okay, let's go around the group and see who to go with first. Well, we're going to go with the artists first, or the art historians at least. So the collection itself is both varied and valuable seeming, assuming that all these pieces are genuine. They seem to be kind of odd in their provenance. The physical evidence they present is immaculate, but they seem to be works either by individuals you've never heard of, or in the case of a couple of them, by known artists. But even though this work looks like a paragon of the style, you're fairly sure it's not listed anywhere. I mean, you'd have to go back to the school's libraries to double check and carry out it, but you're fairly sure, you've never heard of these before, despite having studied the relative artists quite specifically. Two of you have painting, right? So I can give you some of this. They are as a whole exceptional pieces that rank alongside the very best work from the artists that can be identified. They're striking and almost certainly incredibly valuable, both on an academic and a monetary level. The subjects of them, however, are slightly odd and off-putting. Do any of the three people examining it have history?
I have natural history.
You have natural history. No, it's Inga who has history. That's fine. Anytime you feel that there might be something of interest to another character who has it, feel free. And I won't give these hints forever. This is a first session deal, but always if you think there's something applicable, feel free to bring that character in some fashion. And I will tell you in this specific circumstance that a character with history might be useful. But as you're looking through this stuff, this is what it currently seems to you. There is, however, of something specifically of interest to Theodore. Theodore, one of the paintings, which is extremely good, is of the Arch of Saint Lucrece, with other notable Parisian buildings in the background that place it in the Ile de Cité. However, such an arch does not exist. And you have art history as well, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Also, you're fairly sure there's no Saint Lucrece.
Right, no such figure existed.
Nope. And this arch definitely is not in the Ile de Cité in Paris.
So So how do I recognize it as such then? Like, is
because the buildings in the background are real.
Right.
You know where this is meant to be, but there is no Arch of St. Lucrece. There is no St. Lucrece, and if there were, they are definitely not in that spot, because you know what is there, and it is not that.
Right. Okay. But I mean, the arch specifically, like, is it sort of marked as such? Like,
the painting is titled at the bottom.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Interesting. This is. I mean, this is wrong. This painting is. I mean, I'm no painter, but it seems masterfully done. But the content is simply wrong. This doesn't belong here.
Maybe it was a thought exercise.
Maybe. Doesn't strike me as a particularly fanciful piece.
Perhaps a concept painting of some kind?
What, as if an arch were planned to be built?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Would I know what, presumably being a built-up area, this is there where something else should be? Would I...
Yeah, and let's say it's a small park.
Right, okay. I mean, I believe there's a park here, so perhaps someone commissioned it as a sort of a vision for future work. I don't know. It's rather peculiar.
Well, if it was a commission, then that would hopefully mean there should be a record of it somewhere.
Where would we find?
There may well be. It's difficult to tell. It's quite difficult. Like, if this again, how old are these places? These paintings, rather, like many of them seem to have be 200, 300 years old. Like,
good luck finding that paperwork.
Good luck finding that paperwork, specifically in Paris.
Yeah,
where a lot of paperwork went away 100 years ago.
Yes.
Very suddenly. So, but perhaps there will be some correspondence to back it up. You could certainly investigate this. While you're having this conversation, Alex, you are kind of like looking around the room as you pace around. Something that you spot that occurs to you. Two of the paintings aren't in stacks. Instead, they are hung on rough nails embedded into the wall containing the window. And since you have intuition, I will reveal that they seem to be two parts of a triptych display. An empty nail does indeed sit between them.
Okay. Can I go and have a look at them and see what the contents are and what the missing painting
Absolutely
may have been?
It's quite unusual because most triptychs are very small and are on kind of like folding boards. But these, they certainly seem to be three parts of one, perhaps landscape. It's difficult to tell. You get the impression that like they are the edges of a larger piece, and the colors used in them are quite odd and dim. All you can really tell is that on one side there is a sort of like a wide night sky of kind of quite large stars, and on the other side there is some kind of very kind of flat, calm lake.
Strange. I think Alex is going to call Marie over as someone who knows about landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Is one of these missing? I feel like there should be another one here.
For sure, the middle element of the triptych is missing.
Yeah, having looked around briefly, do I see anything that matches the style at all?
There is nothing that even remotely matches the style. You would say that this work is almost impressionistic, and impressionism is pretty damn recent. This does not look like a painting that is 200 to 300 years old. All the rest of them do.
Okay. She's going to turn back to Kadim and just say, "Are you certain that this room has not been entered?"
And this seems like a perfect opportunity to wrap in with Howie's conversation with her, where I'm just let's actually start a bit with Howie, and then Marie can like arrive in the conversation.
Yeah.
So Howie, you like I think one of the things you were just kind of trying to set her at ease and talk to her, but specifically one of the things you mentioned you wanted to talk about was how this was found. If they didn't know it, what's it here? And basically, as Marie approaches the conversation, she's saying, "Oh, it was a custodian, Georges, brought it to my attention 2 weeks ago, and then obviously we investigated. I'm sorry, you won't be able to speak to him on the matter yourself. He has, in fact, not reported into work since the day after telling us of this.
What a shame. I was going to say, he sounds like a good man if he's been, coming in and finding these spots that clearly the other custodians had missed. So, has anybody checked up on the poor guy?
Perhaps you might think that, although his work has frankly always been inconsistent and unreliable since he started here over 3 years ago. But I have not had the time nor inclination to send someone to check in on him, I'm afraid. No.
We'd be happy to pay him a visit if he could give us his address, if that would be appropriate. Wouldn't want him to.
Yeah, we certainly we have his address. If you wish to speak to him, I am sure he would. I'm sure he would be happy to speak to you. And if you do see him, obviously, perhaps ask him if he's intending on returning to work at any point.
Maybe a little overexcited.
Yeah, sure.
Poor guy.
At this point, Marie, you can kind of enter the conversation.
Sure. So Marie's just going to wander over and just, are you certain that this room has not been entered after its discovery and no additional pieces have been deposited here?
I mean, I don't. It's been entered several times since it was discovered, but by myself or the hospital staff. I could not vouch entirely for it. But why?
Do you happen to know the origin of those two pieces over there? And she's going to point to the wall.
No, they were definitely on the wall when I first entered.
When you first entered, so that was 2 weeks ago, was that immediately after it was discovered?
Yes, within a few hours of Georges mentioning this room, I came down here with some of the staff. We came in, and there were definitely those two on the wall. I remember there were two on the wall.
Just two?
Yes, just two.
Because it appears to be part of a triptych. There's a missing painting.
I'm sorry, I simply don't know anything about art.
A set of three. There should have been one in the middle.
Well, everything here certainly looks to me as it was when I first came in, but I hardly am the kind of person to count portraits.
That's understandable. I was just interested in finding that missing piece.
Well, the only person who was in here before me, as far as I'm aware, is Georges. So perhaps your little errands, perhaps they run into each other.
Yes. We should definitely pay him a visit.
Well, as I say, I can find you his address. His name is Georges Vuillet. Yes.
I mean, as for the actual collection itself, I'm very impressed. The condition is immaculate. Several artists that I do recognize, and I'm sure that after a small amount of further investigation, I'd be willing to start negotiation.
Of course. Well, why don't we start talking about that? she begins to talk with you. And while we do that, let's hop over to Mark and his conversation with Monsieur Marcy, who seems at least slightly reluctant to talk to you, but he's certainly being polite. He is interested in the trove as well, and has been kind of like examining various paintings while you're having a conversation with him. What kind of things are you striking up, Mark?
Yeah, so I'll be sort of, I guess, shoulder surfing, essentially, chatting away. I'm sure I've sort of, well, if I hadn't heard of his establishment before, I will pretend I have, at least, and comment on his good eye, and yes, surely being in the know to be on the list to find such a place as this is clearly he's well connected. And yes, I'll steer the conversation around to what his particular interest is with these paintings. Is it simply a financial matter? Is it simply good business, or does he and his family have a personal interest in this particular collection? And possibly how he found out about this sale.
He seems to be, to a certain degree, avoiding your questions. He is kind of like shrugging them off, saying, "Oh, we are interested in any collections of art in the city, obviously, and this is a fascinating circumstance. It would be a wonderful find for our store, for our gallery. We deal in all manner of paintings." And he's kind of talking, when someone's just talking in circles to try and do it. But one thing I will tell you, because Mark has miscellany, yes? He has a very non-Parisian accent, or very non-French accent for someone called Louis Marcy. You would, after a few minutes of talking to him, you would swear blind that this man is Italian, not French.
Okay.
Which is odd. It's certainly possible for an Italian to be called Louis Marcy, but it's pretty odd.
Can I turn on the charm and sort of essentially push my bonhomie skill and just try to get to know him a bit better? Try to weasel out a few more juicy details about his life.
And I'll give you a few things with some push for sure. He lets slip while talking to you that he has married into the family business of Maison Marcy. And you know that he let this slip because he very quickly changes the subject after he has done so. But that's all he gives you. You're usually, even with a push, your usually glittering skills are not buttering people up on, not really. He's pretty tight-lipped. And in fact, shortly after that, he kind of essentially excuses himself to examine some of the paintings more closely.
Interesting.
Okay. Have we? I think we've gone round everyone now. Yes. So there we go. The process of actually kind of like cataloging these paintings is something that's likely to take at least a few hours rather than like a thing here. So in the meantime, while we hop in with Marie, because Marie is the one negotiating, yes, which is probably a good idea. What with your negotiation skill, and you know what? After just some, I'm not going to ask you to like role play it out necessarily, but just for the key items, obviously you've got a number you can offer. What else are you throwing in the conversation?
I think Marie actually is going to lead with talking about the cultural value of these items, picking out a couple of artists that are not only well known but are like locals, if that makes sense. And trying to really press on the cultural value of this discovery, and how it should absolutely be protected and kept together before going into any form of like monetary negotiation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That seems to work on Kadeen a fair bit. She says, well, I'm not particularly artistic, as I have made clear, but things you argue for do make sense. And I am, as all civic officials are, extremely invested in the cultural good of our city. And aside from anything else, Ms. Vuillet, I'm very happy for you students to stay here and do your cataloging work. If you forgive me, Monsieur Marcy has offered a bit more money. So I can't say I've definitively made an offer, accepted an offer just yet, but I do want to tell you, especially if you perhaps do a little bit of cataloging work here and let us know some more information about the finds. I'm definitely, you're in considerable consideration.
Excellent. Well, allow us to catalogue these finds, primarily because it is important that we make notes of this discovery. This is an incredibly important discovery.
Of course.
But also that gives me a little more chance to discuss the numbers involved.
Absolutely. This triple. Were you hinting that someone may have stolen the centerpiece?
I think that should be considered as a possibility. If, as you say, no one came into the room other than Georges, and there is a clear display for 3 pieces, it doesn't make particular sense that that display would be incomplete given the current state of everything in here.
Yes. Yes.
Obviously, it may well just be that it was stored improperly and that piece was missing before the room was opened, but
it is a worry and a concern, though. Well, I know all the members of the hospital staff who've utilized the outside room who may have had access. I'll gather them together and perhaps you and your friends can have a word with them just to,
that would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
They might be able to tell you more about where to find Georges as well. But you get on with your work. Monsieur Marcy, did you want to help them in this? Marcy kind of turns around and says, no, madame, thank you. I am happy with this, and I'm sure these fine students will do a wonderful job. You have my offer. I will give you and them a very good day, and we hope you will consider Maison Marcy. He gives you all a polite wave and bow and walks out. She says, well, there we go then. Yes, some of you talk to these staff, please, and some of you to catalog. I'm sorry, I'm managing you now. But I will bring the staff outside, and she kind of wanders out. It feels, and obviously I was also managing you there, it does feel like we have a little split where the art history people can maybe look at this stuff and the others can speak to the staff. Does that feel right?
I was about to say, yeah, Marie's going to stay and look at the paintings, but is going to probably suggest that the others go and investigate this disappearing painting. But before she does that, she's also going to make clear that they understand that not only is this like a missing painting, it's the fact that this style shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that is also a mystery.
Absolutely. Before we do split the party a little bit, this is first session generosity. I will remind you that there are a lot of historical subjects in these paintings.
I was going to say I was keen to stay for the cataloging because, like, getting the records of this is like totally the kind of stuff Howie wants to capture in his notes, like him to kind of capture the discovery. I'm kind of torn because I also kind of want to speak to people, but like I think Howie would offer to, you know, basically be scribe while they are exploring the paintings, and cheekily, if that offers an opportunity to, you know, do some history check, then, you know,
Yeah.
I'm around for that too.
I am also slightly torn because Blaze is pretty good at telling when people are telling the truth.
Sure.
And he's also familiar with the inner workings of a hospital. So
Mm.
if someone's like, I don't know, I've never been down here, then maybe he can.
Sure. All right. We've got a like a horizontal split there, then, haven't we? The top line is going out to talk to the staff. The bottom line is staying in Catalan a little bit. So let's do that then. And let's take the staff talkers first. You head out, and within just a few minutes of you kind of gathered, you're in that kind of storeroom just outside, so you're not very far away. And within a few minutes, Kadeen has brought several members of staff along to where you are. The maintenance staff sort of look a little hesitant, it has to be said, and sort of kind of reluctant to talk to you. But Kadeen kind of encourages them to do so. Is there anyone in particular taking the lead, or are we just kind of talking to them separately?
Well, I think I'd probably at least start by sort of, you know, breaking the ice and just trying to, you know, diffuse the atmosphere a bit, make it rather more friendly, you know, have a chat with each of them, sort of again, maybe crack a few jokes.
Sure. Put them
know,
at their ease.
just yes.
Yeah. And you know, you absolutely do that, and you feel like the barriers notably come down as they realize you're perhaps not there to kind of tell them off or like talk about the trouble they're in or anything like that. And very quickly, Kadeen has wandered off by this point, saying, you know, they were kind of slightly reserved, and as soon as Kadeen goes, one of them, a younger man, kind of leans in towards you and says, Monsieur, the thing I would tell you, and you will not, I'm sure you will make of this what you will. I swear blind that doorway did not exist. But 2 weeks ago. Several of the others are kind of nodding along. There is a woman kind of stood a little bit behind them, and she is sort of working a rosary in her hands and looks entirely uncomfortable.
Well, the world is a mysterious place, and you will know your hospital better than anyone, I suppose. I think we've all seen things that we can't explain.
One of them goes, it was just hidden behind the cabinets. They've only recently been moved. The woman stood at the back, shakes her head and says, no, and I will not go in there. I will never go in there. I have worked here for 30 years. It was not there. And the Vuillet, he was a strange man. Strange. Quiet and strange. The others kind of shrug and say, he was a little quiet. Raymond knew him best. He kind of points over to a kind of tall, muscular porter who kind of looks back and kind of looks a bit like why did you say that? And says, I knew George a little. You knew him well. You used to talk about communard politics. Raymond shoots him a venomous glance and he shuts up almost immediately. We talked about symbolism, art, culture, George would not shut up about the theatre.
Is he a culture man? Did he know his paintings well?
Not his paintings. He knew. He was extremely interested in the symbolist movement and the theatre. The paintings a little. Theatre was his passion. As far as I know, only theatre groups knew him outside of the hospital. He was a man of a singular interest. He said he'd been writing something recently for one of them, for one of the theatre groups.
You don't know which one?
Yes, I know which one. It's the director is a man called Lunya Poe. He went to see the performances all the time. And he said he was writing something for them, but I never knew him to have any actual literary or theatrical aspirations. Do any of you currently talking to them have culture or Bellatriste?
I have culture.
You know who Lunya Poe is. He's a relatively famous in the symbolist movement in the theatre. In fact, I would say you probably know that he tends to put on his performances, and with very little effort, you could find where he is.
Oh, I think I'm familiar with. Yes. That.
Well, I can tell you for sure that George definitely was. He didn't shut up about the man. One of the other porters says, didn't shut up about it to you, maybe. Raymond shakes his head. Blaze, at the beginning of this, you mentioned the possibility of using your assess honesty. Would you like to make use of that now? The only thing that Raymond seems to be in any way trying to gild or pass over is the politics part.
Understandable.
Which was fairly obvious to everyone anyway. But like, yeah, you generally, they probably did talk about politics a fair bit.
That's not my concern.
No, right? Okay. The hospital staff seem to kind of have sort of nothing else for you. But unless you can think of anything specific to ask them about.
I'd maybe ask whether they have whether they know where George lives, but I suspect we can probably find him at this theatre anyway.
Maybe. Kadeen did say that she would get his address for you. So
maybe only just one more sort of just ask how, because Kadeen did say his did she say his character changed?
She said specifically, she said he was inconsistent and unreliable. No, I don't think so. Did she?
Perhaps I just picked up on.
She said he hadn't turned up for work since the discovery.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm fine. I think yeah.
I'd ask if did anyone speak to him after he found this room? Did he go straight to Kadeen, or how did he seem?
They all look at each other, and Raymond shrugs and says, I suppose he was a little frantic about it. But no, I think the day after is when he stopped coming in. So no, I haven't seen him since then. They all kind of shake their heads.
Okay.
I will again, first session generosity here. Would anyone like to ask for a description of Georges Vuillet? You're warming up your investigator muscles. I know that. I just want to get these gears flowing, these investigative juices. I'm not going to go further than that.
Not yet. It's only episode 1.
Exactly.
Blaze will take out his sketchbook and a piece of graphite.
Perfect.
and
Perfect.
ask around for a general description.
Absolutely. Raymond kind of shrugs and says, somewhat plain looking. He has the curly brown hair, scar at his hairline. He said it was from his time in the army, though he never struck me as the military sort. He's maybe in his late 30s or early 40s. It's hard to tell. He's quite baby-faced.
Is the scar on the left or the right?
The right. The right. There. Taps kind of just off center on the right of his head.
40s.
Is John about to hold up a perfect portrait?
Give me a minute. No.
A perfect portrait. Lovely stuff. Okay. Back in the mystery room, we're looking at and cataloging these portraits. Howie, let's start with you. It's your first time looking at them. Again, you don't know art that much, but you know historical subjects. And they all seem like there seems to be something like a little unusual about, or you wouldn't have picked these as perhaps like frequent subjects of art. And in fact, one of them particularly stands out to you, which is that there is a very, very good, to your eyes at least, painting of a King Francis III that has kind of the heraldry behind him of France. This is clearly a king of France. There was no King Francis III. The individual in the portrait bears a bit of a familial resemblance to King Francis II, but there was no King Francis III. Certainly not of France.
Well, this one's a little bit interesting. It looks like the lost son of the real King Francis II, but there wasn't ever a third. Unless I'm getting something wrong here, but
Francis II died young. You're very sure of that, and like there definitely was no Francis III.
This one's a bit of imagination.
One thing I want to flag for you all, by the way, just because again it's like out of the mindset, and I'm trying to like draw your mindset to a more 1895 art historian mindset. That I realize we're coming to this as players in a cosmic horror game with a very specific set of expectations to draw out of a find like this. Where your minds are probably going is forgery. Art forgery was a colossal industry in the 1800s. So what your mind may immediately be going to is not, this is weird and slightly spooky, but this is a really bad mistake. Having said that, they look extremely convincing. They look aged. Like, you don't know this, Howie, but Theodore and Marie certainly do. The brush strokes look right. If they are forgeries, they're very, very good ones.
It's just seems a little bit weird because I don't know. Maybe this took some inspiration from Francis II, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know. This is don't know why you would create. I mean, if this is meant to, like, who's going to buy this? Unless someone just doesn't know what they're doing.
Perhaps it could be an old forgery.
Why would you forge something that isn't real? That seems, wouldn't you, if you're going to forge a famous painting, wouldn't you forge something that's from a real person? It just seems a bit odd.
Sorry to interrupt, and it is valid to interrupt just before Alex speaks. As this conversation is happening, Alex, Theodore is examining a different painting.
Ah,
And Theodore has been kind of flicking through and looking, and mostly looking for, though you have art history, obviously you are more interested in perhaps landscapes and buildings and things like that, rather naturally. You find yourself stumbling on an unmarked painting in a strangely modern impressionistic style. It pictures a dark building on a Paris street. The outlines and structure give an odd, blasphemous sense of decadence, and you feel a sudden drop in the pit of your stomach. It is highly reminiscent of a place glimpsed and now lost. In the trick of the dim light of the chamber, it seemed when you first glanced at it that there was a figure stood backed by harsh yellow illumination at one of the upper windows, but now they are gone. And with that, we're going to have our first hazard check of the game. So what you're checking is composure.
right.
I would say it is a difficulty that is like,
Give me a spice level.
yeah, you're not like battered immediately to your spiritual core. It's kind of like it's
What spiritual
revisiting
core?
it's revisiting a kind of previous trauma, but like just in the same way that if you thought about it and kind of had a shudder, it's that kind of level.
Right.
With that in mind, how many points of composure would you like to add to your D6 to try and equal or overcome the difficulty?
Well, far be it from me to metagame, as you know, I would never do, Matt.
I can't imagine you trying
to mechanize in any way. I do have a pool of 6 in composure, so I will probably burn a hefty amount here. I think I'll leave 2 in reserve and I'll go for 4. So basically, anything but a 1 should see me through, right? That's
You'd think so, yeah.
Let's give it a whirl. That is a 2, so that's a good decision.
Okay, it is, and you kind of steel yourself to like. What really makes you steel yourself to it is that your friends are around you. You think if you were alone, this might have hit you much harder. Do you think your reaction? I can imagine that your reaction would definitely not be to draw attention to it.
No,
but is your reaction like to put it immediately back so you're not looking at it, or are you taking it in a bit more? I'm not saying that gives extra information. I'm just saying I'm just interested behaviorally.
I think yes. I think purely behaviorally. I think Theodore would be sort of grimly transfixed by it for maybe a few passing seconds, because nagging in his mind is this need to solve the thing that doesn't make sense, and to try to understand where this thing is so that he can go and like look at it as a concrete thing in reality and like dispel the uncomfortable inability to comprehend what it is. But I think that doesn't get him anywhere, I'm assuming.
No.
And so he'll immediately sort of just hurriedly cover it with some other thing and just sort of take a few paces to one side and sort of try not to signal too much his discomfort.
Absolutely. Very well. There is nothing else really to be found among the paintings that the three of you and Blaze as well have not already found, but it is going to take a couple of hours to kind of notate all these things and catalog them down and put prospective artists and styles and stuff like that on. I'm assuming that in the talking to the hospital staff took a while as well, but in the meantime, is anyone who isn't an art historian, so the only people who can do this, so Mark, Alex, Howie, and maybe even some of the others of you, are you going to leave or at least kind of head out of the hospital and wait outside or anything like that, or are you just going to wait where you are in a storeroom? Because you don't really need to be there while these things are being catalogued.
I'm helping catalog, so I'll stay.
Okay. How about Mark and Alex?
I think Alex wants to go get breakfast.
Yeah, that's reasonable. That's reasonable.
Well,
oh, you're on mute, Steve.
I'll pop in to see whether anyone cataloging, needs anything. If They probably wouldn't allow food in here anyway. But yeah, but after that, certainly getting a bite to eat or a drink or something would be the thing to do, I think. Yes,
absolutely. Okay, but the other four of you are doing the cataloging. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
I am going to slightly wave a GM wand to kind of force the situation. I am going to say that this catalog work, you're in quite a dim environment, and it's quite claustrophobic in here, and quite the air is quite stale. And perhaps sitting and doing that for 2 or 3 hours, you'll want to go for a walk, right? You want to stretch your legs at least up to the corridors, or perhaps even outside. And I'm going to say that a confluence of comings and goings result in Marie being alone for a few minutes in the chamber. And during these few minutes, which time you're just getting on, logging these things, you've got quite a hefty, satisfying list of these things now. And let me tell you, if these things are genuine, the number that the professor wrote down is a steal.
Okay.
And as you are kind of like considering this and looking at the end of your kind of your list, top to bottom, you hear it. Monsieur Rouenet, it has to be you. No other can paint as you do. You do not know the voice.
Yeah, she'll like turn around and see if she can figure out where it was coming from.
There is no one in the room. There is no one in the storeroom outside.
Yeah, okay. She's going to be a little bit confused, and then probably, I don't know. She's going to just double check outside, and then kind of quietly go, is anyone there?
You hear a sound of a single sharp intake of breath, but there is no one there. Can you make a composure check for me, please? This is, I mean, you're spooked. It's a spooking. That's the level it's at, but it's not, in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to be huge in the level of things I have composure checks for in this.
Yes, yeah.
So, but yes, please, that's going to be composure.
Cool. Well, I'm going to shove in 2 points to hopefully balance out any terrible rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a 5, so yeah, 7 total.
Yeah, you are obviously, I would say, spooked, or think that someone's playing a trick on you. But there is nothing. You are holding firm.
Excellent. Okay.
Few, probably about 20 seconds later, Theodore walks back in from outside, where perhaps he's taking a breath of fresh air or having a smoke or something along those lines. Those two things don't exactly coincide, although people do them all the time. But it just kind of walks down the corridor.
Okay. Theodore, did you happen to see anyone coming down the corridor on your way up?
No. Should I have?
No. It's fine.
What a peculiar question. No.
Okay. The rest of the cataloguing goes on without incident, and you all meet again outside the Hôpital Saint-Louis. It's probably around just after midday now. The storm of yesterday has given way to some relatively bright sunshine in a slightly clouded sky. What are we intending to do now?
I assume we probably share the info, in which case, well, does anyone fancy trying to find this George fella?
I think that would be a good place to start. At least to try and track down this missing painting, which has has confused me slightly.
Yes, that's fascinating. In terms of, surely, if you were going to steal, triptychs are. There's no value in a third of one, is there? Surely so.
No.
Why would you steal a third of a painting?
Maybe he was, or someone else was intending to take them out one at a time. I mean, we're assuming George is the first one we knew to come in here, but maybe someone else had discovered it and been in the process of taking them, and then they were discovered.
True. But also, I don't understand why someone would choose those paintings in a room of such valuable paintings. Why would you go for the ones that, to my eye at least, look like they were actually made more recently?
Maybe you just like them. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about all this art stuff, so I mean, see three nice paintings, I pick the one I like the most. Might be as simple as that. I mean, this guy was a custodian, he wasn't an art student, you know.
They seemed a bit weird though, those ones. All the other ones were like bits of the city, like kind of normal looking places. The two on the wall were sort of, I don't know. I didn't recognize them as real places. They just kind of dark and a bit of a weird one to steal for personal preference, if you ask me.
Just a quick question. Kadeen did give you the address of Georges' apartment in Belleville, which is the same arrondissement you're in now. Are we having this conversation while we walk it? Like, I've assumed we're going to his address first, but of course there is also the theatre lead. But it's around the corner, kind of, and I guess we mentioned the address. So can I assume we are walking there?
Yeah, that seems reasonable too.
Cool. Sorry, crack on.
I mean, I suppose it's possible that we're looking at it the wrong way round. We're thinking that someone may have removed one, but what if someone hadn't got around to putting one up?
That's also what I was thinking. But
how recent do you think the paintings are? You got a closer look than I did.
They look to be an impressionist style, which can only mean within the past few decades. Which makes no sense with the remainder of Kadeen's story.
Or makes it even more valuable if this guy's, whoever's painted them is, you know, real ahead of his time. I don't know.
Well, maybe someone found the room of old paintings and decided to turn it into their own gallery.
But what for?
The hospital?
Of all the places to put up your paintings, a room that no one's ever been in? Surely you want to show off your paintings. I don't know how artists think, but I don't know any artists that are hiding their paintings away.
Which is what makes me think that we must be dealing with some kind of master forger.
As you say this, Marie, you all arrive just outside the listed apartment of Georges Vuillet. You're in as I said, Belleville is very working class neighborhood, and this is very working class street. It doesn't look, it looks not unpleasant. You're not in a slum or anything, but it's very much not high, particularly fancy either. There are the apartment building does, however, have like a series of bells. Whether they work or not, you don't know, but to gain the attention of the particular apartment holders.
All right, well, let's have a knock.
Okay, you ring the appropriate bell, and a couple of minutes later, the door opens. It is a short, rather stout woman of early middle years who kind of looks around at you all like this gathering of well, I should say 7 individuals, because even though I've done my usual NPCs accompanying you now, but obviously Laura is with you as well and has been helping you kind of look through. I don't think she has art history, so like, or maybe she does. Does Sculptor have art history? Someone can check that for me, I'm sure. Either way, she was helping you with all the stuff, but seemed kind of very impressed with it all, but defaulting to your perhaps greater knowledge of paintings than hers. She looks around at the 7 of you and says, "Oh, what's this then?"
Oh, we're simply here to check up on George, just his well-being. His colleagues at work are concerned about him.
Well, I'm concerned about him as well, and you know why? Because he hasn't lived here for bloody 6 months. But people keep on turning up.
Oh, I'm sorry. That must be terribly inconvenient for you.
We're not left alone regarding his whereabouts, I tell you.
Well, who else has been asking after him?
What's your what interpersonal skills have you got, John?
Assess honesty.
Yeah, that ain't gonna cut it. Well, I don't see why it's any business of yours. What do you have to do with this George anyway?
Can I say I'd bought a bottle of wine to bring to Georges, and I've got it with me because I was going to use that to sort of.
You can if you push.
Sure. So I'll sort of deflect the what do we have to do with George and just sort of. Oh, well, we were hoping to speak to him. I don't really want this bottle to go to waste. Perhaps for your trouble.
Oh, well, thank you, monsieur. Well, I suppose it's not your fault that you're here on top of all the others. Oh, all the others, 2 others. There was one gentleman, a repeat visitor, who had to be told several times that he did not live here any longer. That was near the beginning. And the day before last, and this is my frustration, Madame and Monsieur, the day before last, there was another individual here, rough-looking Italian. He came seeking him the day before last.
Might I trouble you for a description of these people?
Oh, the Italian was, well, you know how they are. He was unshaven a little bit, mustache, flat cap, burly. And the first gentleman, I'm sorry, he came here 7 or 8. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't picture him at all.
Are you all right, madame?
No. I think I'd better. I will take this wine and have a seat. I'm sorry, I couldn't be of any more help. Good day. She steps back through the door and shuts it before you can say anything.
Well, that was odd.
Very
Where's he
like
been
this whole
living?
business.
Who are these other fellas? Matt, is there any chance that description of the Italian guy could possibly have been a roughed up looking
No,
totally different.
no. He was a very slender, tall man. He had a very kind of like he had very slick bearing. You know, he looked modern. He looked well presented. It definitely doesn't sound like him. Although, as of course Mark noticed, he did speak French with an Italian accent.
Well, I
suppose
guess
it's
we
the
gotta
theatre.
check out this theater lead and see if they know where he might be. Where's he been staying? 6 months, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Shame we didn't get a forwarding address.
Also, if you're going to steal a painting, good to leave a fake address.
True.
But 6 months, that was only discovered 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
He
so
only
where has he been
reported it
living?
2 weeks ago.
True.
It's long con.
Let's go track down this theatre lead.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to say in the couple of hours where Mark was having breakfast, he also managed to kind of like look through some theatre listings in the restaurant that he was browsing, and found basically he knew which theatre group it was. He just had to find the exact kind of locations. And the offices of this theatre group are listed as being above La Salle Berlioz, which is a theatre in Pigalle. A arrondissement next to and slightly seedier than Montmartre. Montmartre is not the least seedy place. It is home, for example, to the Moulin Rouge and various other cabarets. But you find yourself before long in front of a modestly sized theatre with a white facade. There is no performance listing for today, but the doors are open and the noise of some kind of stage performance is clearly audible from within. Why the hesitation? This is just a theatre performance in a roleplay system called the Yellow King. What's the problem here?
Yeah,
Yeah, head on in.
I was about to say let's go in and see what performance is going on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as you walk in, you can see that there are a group of individuals carrying out what seems to be a rehearsal on a large, mostly empty stage. And in point of fact, another fun image. Let's bring up what that stage looks like. Or I will. There we go. I keep wondering which thing to use. I think this is the best. But that is what the stage looks like. There is no audience, save for a man in a bowler hat and heavy coat who appears to be asleep in the front row. The performers wear exoticized caricatures of Indian clothing, kind of what a Parisian in 1895 might think someone on the Indian subcontinent dressed like. And if observed for a while, which I'm assuming you're doing, is anyone? Sorry, I should ask actually. Is anyone going to interrupt the rehearsal, or would you let them kind of carry on for a bit while you stand there? They're certainly not stopping.
I was going to enjoy a bit of a sneak peek of the rehearsal. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as you observe it, you see that the play seems to be concerned with the problems posed by the theft of an object held in storage and the vanity of wealth. Who among you has culture? Is that just Steve, I think, right?
Certainly. Well, Mark has culture.
Mark has culture, yeah. As you are very much the jack of all trades character. You recognize it as a translation of the Sanskrit classic, The Terracotta Chariot. All of you can see that the set is dressed in an odd minimalist style, largely with backdrops painted in suggestive colored lines, but with the odd, more developed building or character that those of you with art history or painting can tell is in an excellent post-impressionist style, very modern. But that's all there is, this rehearsal, and there, as I say, there is a man snoring over to one side. Are you all waiting completely patiently for it to end? Are you investigating anything else or moving anywhere in the theatre environment?
We were also given, well, we know that the offices are upstairs, don't we?
Yes. You could see when you came to the theatre that, like, the office door that was just inside the entrance looked closed and locked. And you would imagine if this is the theatre company, then this is them. You have to imagine.
Cool.
But,
in which case, yeah, I think just wait.
Yeah. Is that everyone? Anyone taking a look at anything else or trying anything else?
I think Alex would like to get at least close enough to the guy in the front row to get a good look at him.
Sure.
Check
Absolutely.
he's not the guy, but
sure.
in any case, to have a look at him.
He's definitely not the gentleman described to you. He's, as I say, snoring quite loudly. He has an unscrewed cane next to him, as in the top of it has been screwed off. That has some kind of long vial in the shaft, presumably for some manner of drink. It is quite dark where he sits, but if you get a little closer to him, which I'm assuming you're doing so, he's really quite recognizable. Do you have society, don't you, Alex?
Nope.
Do you?
I
No.
have intuition is maybe the only thing that might help me, but
Sure. Is anyone accompanying Alex to get a closer look at this guy, or it's fine if not, you know?
If Alex is straying off on his own, then I will hurry after him.
Okay. And do you have society?
I do.
There we go. He's very recognizable, both from his manner of dress and his unusually shortened legs. This is Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, a painter and hedonist, well known as the soul of Montmartre. The performers on stage occasionally glance at his sleeping form with a certain amount of irritated tolerance. If the backs, and you have art history as well, let's give you this. If the
No,
stage
I have
setting,
painting.
you have that will also do. If
good.
you, since you know who he is and you know that that set is dressed in a post-impressionistic style, there is a non-zero chance that Toulouse-Lautrec painted that.
Oh.
And he's evidently getting a free rehearsal performance that he's drunk and sleeping through. But, you know, there we go. If there's nothing else from anyone else, we can wind forward to a break in the rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. A pleasant-seeming and young man stood just off stage, calls the performance to a halt after another 10 minutes or so with a clap. He shouts for a break and then bounds off stage and up to you quite swiftly. He seems very polite and very friendly. He also seems like I have a picture of him. Here we go. And he says, Madame and Monsieur, welcome. We do not mind people coming in off the street and watching our rehearsals. It is only rough material at this stage, but can I help you?
quite possibly. We're looking for a friend of ours, I suppose, called Georges. We understand he had some dealings with you.
Would this be Georges Vuillet?
It would indeed.
Yes, Georges is definitely known to me. I shouldn't say that in such a way. He's a man with his heart in the right place. Why don't we talk of this in the lobby? Let my performers, they need to blow off steam between the rehearsals. You maybe understand. I don't know if... Come with me.
Very well.
You walk into the lobby where he has a kind of large decanter of water over to the side, which he pours kind of out a glass for everyone and kind of proffers them in your direction. Thirsty work. I'll be thirstier later. Georges, I am grateful for the attention and support he gives to our little theatre company in particular and the growing community of theatrical symbolists in Paris in general. I do not mean to speak ill of your friend, but his fervency can be a little full on. I'm sure you know, intimidating sometimes. And more than once I have felt the need to shield my performers from almost fanatical praise. With that in mind, how can I help you regarding Georges?
Well, we're slightly concerned about him ourselves. We haven't been able to find him recently. We haven't seen him around, and we're just wondering if you've seen him, if he comes to the performances regularly, if you know where we might be able to find him.
Well, let me see. I haven't seen Georges for maybe 3 weeks or so. We had a slightly contentious conversation, or more contentious than normal. Yes. Why are you concerned about? Has he disappeared? Has no one seen him?
He hasn't turned up for work in about 2 weeks.
Oh, really? I suppose I hadn't seen him at the department store myself.
The department store?
Yes, where he works, Prontom. No?
He may have had more than one employment.
Oh, perhaps. I assumed I saw him performing custodial duties at Prontom in Pigalle 6 months ago. I'm sorry, as I say, I ascribed his not having come to us because of not a disagreement. I think he was unhappy with what I'd said to him.
If you don't mind us asking, what was the disagreement about?
What interpersonal skills have you got, Howie?
I've got reassurance.
Good. That works for this purpose. I mean, you understand I don't wish to disparage the man. All right. He had informed me that he was working on an adaptation, or perhaps just a translation, it wasn't entirely clear, of some obscure work he claimed to have rediscovered. He wanted us to put it on when he was finished, and I did not dismiss that it might be quality work. Sometimes surprise genius comes from unexpected places, but I had expressed that it was unlikely the company could find time to do more than maybe have a read of the work, provide some critique. He was unhappy with this, though the dispute definitely stopped short of an actual argument. I tried to make friendly overtures. He departed the offices, shaking his head in a slightly disconcerting manner, mumbling quite nonsensical things in a very aggravated fashion. I have not seen him since. I'm sorry.
Well, do you know what the subject of this piece of work was?
He did not really say. He was being quite confusing, and normally he is fervent and he is enthusiastic and sometimes does not make himself clear, but this was something else. He had the spirit of the muse upon him. I suppose he was not at all clear. Perhaps
Did
he was drunk.
he say where he might have discovered this?
I'm sorry, no. He simply seemed to think that he had. He certainly thought he had something remarkable. Perhaps he does. I do not know, but I could not commit to it.
Did he provide a name for the work?
No, I'm sorry.
Well,
And
it's no wonder you weren't too invested in it. If he was this vague about it, it's absolutely understandable why you were a bit hesitant. Of course.
Thank you. It is good to be understood on this. I'm so sorry. You are friends of his. I have been remiss. Is there any reason why you're searching for him? And I'm sorry, I did not catch your names.
Well, like we said, he's been missing for a little while now. If he does show up here at the theater again, if you could let him know we've been trying to reach out. You could find us at the maybe the art school's the best place.
Oh,
I can maybe give the address of.
Yeah. Do you all actually give your names as well?
Oh yes, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we have no reason not to.
He kind of nods through them and kind of like a couple of you. He kind of like like he's maybe heard of you or something like that. You're not sure if he's just being polite though. When it gets to Alex, you introduce yourself and he goes, of course, surely you are searching for George for personal reasons. He spoke fairly often of your poetry, sir, in a manner that seemed you were perhaps close friends. He spoke highly of you.
Oh. Well, that's good to hear. Always nice to hear one is being spoken highly of. surely do not deserve that kind of praise, but I would be happy to meet him and talk to him about it myself.
Sam, could you make a composure roll, please?
Okay.
I don't think I need to. How difficult, whatever difficulty you think it would be to have someone go, "Oh yeah, they spoke about you," someone you've never heard of before. Like, you know. So again, on the scale, not huge, you know, but
I'm gonna add 3 points. I think
okay.
it'll be safe. Hopefully, that's a 2, so 5.
You take it remarkably in your stride. I'm sorry, my friends. That is all I know of George. I suppose he did work in 2 places, which seems odd.
This department, yes. Sorry, was this a store, or can you point us in the direction of?
He absolutely does not need to point you in the direction of Printemps. It's the largest and most famous department store in Paris, probably in France, and in fact still is. It is situated in a large and elaborate new building on the Boulevard Haussmann, which is in the... God, I should know this. Yeah, you know. I'll just say you know exactly where it is. It's not particularly important for me to list the arrondissement.
Is it the Paris version of Harrods?
It's absolutely the Paris version of Harrods, and still is.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing, Monsieur. Well, obviously, we're worried that we haven't, that no one really has heard from George. We think someone else might also be looking for him.
Oh.
And just if anyone shows up that how do I put this? Worries you. Would you perhaps let us know?
Of course. I hope he isn't in trouble.
We hope so too.
Yes, of course. If someone does not even seem trouble, I will get in contact and tell you that someone has asked about him.
Thank you.
Out of interest, has anyone else been asking after him?
No, none at all. You are the first.
Okay.
Did you ever go back to where he lived? Did you know where he lived? And
no, we did not have that kind of friendship.
No, of course. Well, thank you so much. You've been so helpful. We don't want to interrupt your rehearsals any more than we've already done.
Of course, and if you come back, let me know if you are to come back, and perhaps I can find some complimentary tickets for you. A friend of George is a friend of the company. He kind of reaches out and shakes all your hands and says, "And if you need to ask me again, my name is Aurelian. My Druva's name, not my stage name. But have a good day, and I hope George is found safe and sound."
Merci, monsieur.
He kind of shakes all your hands and walks out back into the thing. Laura immediately turns around to Alex and says, "What?"
I mean, I don't know. I guess I produced some kind of symbolist stuff a little while ago, but I've never heard of this guy. I don't even know how he'd have found any of my stuff to read.
I mean, he seems a little bit obsessive, right? By the sounds of it, maybe he came across some of your stuff and he's kind of inflating how much, he knows you because he knows your work, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's strange. I mean, I guess some of it was okay, but nothing. I don't know. Odd.
I suppose, Printemps, I needed to do some shopping anyway.
I
So-
quite agree. Let's go. And Marie is probably going to like link arms at that point and head off at the suggestion of shopping. Like, yes, please.
Is
Um,
Marie possibly hoping that Laura will do some shopping for Marie?
I mean, she wouldn't say no, obviously.
It wouldn't be unknown. Laura is quite wealthy.
Exactly.
Can I just suggest while we're walking there to Marie that if we think if there's a suspicion that these might be forgeries, that should be bumping down the price on the negotiation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I agree. 100. That was why I wanted to catalogue the paintings so that we could ensure which could be forgeries.
I have also found that it was already in my notes. Printemps is also in Pigalle, so it's also a short walk away from the theatre that you were just at. And as you are walking to Printemps, it doesn't take long, and when you're nearly there, I would like a check from all of you. And I suppose this is the first non-hazard check, just ability check that we've had. I would like all of you to make a sense trouble check. So these work in exactly the same way as hazards. There is a set difficulty, and you need to add points or not. You don't have to, and make a roll of a d6. And yeah.
Now, given I assume there is some kind of rule. If not, then there is a house rule about this. Given that we are making a collective roll, are we allowed to communicate with others about whether we're banking points or?
No.
I thought that was.
Definitely not.
I think that's how it should be. For the record, I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure we're all
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
And there are some specific rules on kind of doing stuff collectively, but I feel this specific circumstance is more the case of you're all doing it individually, like you're not working together. So like,
yeah, like a passive sort of.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you think other people might have it, obviously don't spend any points. Maybe. Or I might say that all of you who fail get like shot in the face or something. So
You would never just shoot someone suddenly out of nowhere on an RPG though, so it's fine.
not as a GM. Hope MI5 weren't listening to that. Go on.
But also yes as a GM.
But also yes as a GM. Okay, how about we go around very quickly and everyone just tells me what they rolled once their points are added. Sam.
7.
Total of 7. Steve.
2.
John.
3.
Inga.
2.
Alex.
A natural 5.
Holly.
3.
Okay. One of you has succeeded. And obviously that's going to be Sam.
Is it me?
I'm afraid not. So as you are approaching Printemps, you're not quite there. You're a little way down the road from it, Sam. You can see a man eyeing you up warily as he makes his way down the street in an opposing direction. He's carrying what seems to be a large flat object swathed in dirty cloth. He's definitely looking at the group of you specifically. You have intuition, yes?
Yep.
Do you have fashion?
Nope.
No. Intuition, this man has extremely what you would refer to as Mediterranean features.
Okay.
You'd guess this guy is Italian.
Does he fit the description of the Italian man looking for
He
George?
very much fits the description of the Italian man.
Okay. Alex is going to. He's like looking in his notebook. He's trying to look back as we're walking there. He's like looking back, see any scribbles or parts of poems that he might have written a while ago that he thinks might have attracted this guy's attention.
Mhm.
And he looks and sees this guy, and he's gonna kind of like then glance back down at his notebook to not make it obvious, and will say to the other people in the group, "There's a guy over there. I'm pretty sure it's the Italian. Just take a look. Looks exactly like what that woman described."
The rest of you, obviously, this takes a little time, and he's probably just about past you as you've said this. But you have to. Anyone paying attention to Alex has to agree. Also, who has fashion? Okay, he is dressed in a style which, if you had to pick it out, would say he looks like he hails from a rural province of Italy. and I hope I'm not coming across as kind of xenophobic when I'm saying these things. At this period of time, these differences were a lot more apparent. People dressed and like groomed themselves in quite distinctive cultural ways between countries in Europe. Also, it makes it easier for the role-playing game.
Yeah, even just before the invention of fast fashion, you'd have local textiles and styles.
Absolutely would. You absolutely would. Even so, like where the buttons are placed would give you a very solid indication of where someone was from.
Can we assume that this large, flat, covered in cloth object looks suspiciously painting-like?
Oh, sure. Yeah, it does not look like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was. If nobody else had said anything, I was going to nudge Marie and say, "How large was were the other triptychs?"
I mean, it's very.
Marie will give a rough estimation.
It's very bundled. Like, it's not just this is a port. Like, you know, certainly that object that Marie is describing could be within this bundle, but like, it also could be a number of other things reasonably.
So which direction was he going in? Do you say you brushed past us? Was he like heading away from?
He's heading away from you. Yeah. Past you.
Can I just? I'd probably just turn around and try to keep an eye on him. Then, yeah.
Well, he is fast disappearing into the masses of people, kind of wandering the street.
I will follow. Yeah.
You're just going to go and straight up start to follow him. Sure. Is anyone else accompanying Howie, or are we are we all going? Are we splitting? Or what are we doing?
Alex will definitely go.
I will, with a slightly panicked look, I will go.
Then three's a crowd. I won't.
Yeah, Marie's too distracted by the prospect of shopping.
Laura kind of says, "Shall we wait for you?"
I'm already away.
I think I was going to say.
Ticking.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll meet you. Look for George inside. We'll come and find you.
Okay. So that's Blaze, Alex, and Howie heading off, and the others carrying on to Printemps. Is that correct?
I think I would quite like to go with.
You're going as well. Okay. So
Howie and Co. Yes, as well.
So a quicker summary is it's Mark, Marie, and Laura who are carrying on to Printemps. Okay. The four of you who are attempting to follow this guy through the streets. I'm assuming you don't want to be seen and are not just marching after him and waving a flag. In which case, I would like. Now, is this a good moment to do the collaborative thing? You know what? You haven't really organized it, so I think it's not. I think it's individual roles again, and I think that's going to be a sneaking check. So I would like you all to spend appropriate points and make a sneaking check, please.
I spent the 3 points that I have and then rolled a 6.
Nice.
Damn. I spent the 2 points that I had and got a 6.
Nice.
I rolled a 1, but spent 2 points, so 3.
Okay.
I spent all 3 points and rolled a 3, so a total of 6.
Okay. So I will tell you that half of you did not succeed. As you can tell, it was a high check. And I'm going to judge that if half of you were noticed by this guy, it seems pretty unlikely he would not clock that the four of you are following him. And on that point,
didn't 3 of us get 6s? Am I mistaken?
Yes, you did.
The range is.
Oh, did 3 of you get? Sorry,
3 got 6s, yeah, and then 1 got a 3.
6s.
So did someone get a 3 in the rest?
No. Inga got like 9, right?
Oh, I see now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Or sorry. Can we just say? I do want to get it right. So shall we say it again? So that was a 9.
3 for me.
3.
6 total for me.
6. Sorry.
6 total.
Right. That's where I fucked up. For some reason, I thought Alex said higher than that. Okay, one of you succeeded.
Okay, it's even worse. Excellent. Glad I caught that. You're welcome, everyone.
So realistically speaking, I think he's clocked the group of you, like, and he's a little bit of a distance away from you when you suddenly see him kind of bolt over to where some carriages are waiting kind of like an 1895 taxi rank, essentially, at the side of the street. He leaps in one and it trots away.
I mean, I'd like to just run after it as far as I can follow. I appreciate that I might not be able to get that far, but I would like to give it a good old go.
Well, you know what? Give me an athletics check.
All right. I'm spending 4 points on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I rolled a 5, so that's another 9 total.
You know what? I think that's good enough to give you at least a little bit of information. And that information I will give you is that you're fairly sure that carriage, and I'm probably getting the geography of Paris woefully wrong here. It's one of the things I didn't really research that much before I started. But you think that carriage is heading to an arrondissement called Popincourt. You have art history, right? Do you?
I've got history, not art history.
Okay, the significance of that means nothing to you. But again, I'm being generous in provoking that, so perhaps you can ask someone. But yeah, you've lost him.
If this is like a taxi rank, is there a carriage behind the carriage he got in?
Yes, but I would say that like getting into a carriage and saying follow that carriage will lead to the carriage driver going no.
Okay, yeah.
Because that just screams.
I'll head back. I'll head back to the rest of the group. Catch him back up. Just say, I couldn't get him before he jumped in that carriage, but I think he was heading to. Did you say Popincourt?
Popincourt, yeah.
Popincourt.
Does anyone who's there have art history?
I do.
Popincourt is where Maison Marcy is.
Ah.
Are we reconvening outside Printemps?
Yes, and I will obviously. I think Theodore will make a point of that and say, point this information out and say, it may pay to pay a visit to see what odd things are going on in that place.
That, but also we got to tell the hospital, like if one of our little negotiators is off stealing the artworks, don't want to do business with those guys.
True. I guess I feel like it's a painting that would stand out as well. If it ends up in their shop, I'm sure we could find it.
I'm pretty sure that's not one they're going to be selling and putting on display if they've stolen it. I'm sure they've got more subtle means.
Ship that one straight out, surely. Which means we probably need to go visit before they do.
But again, why one painting of 3? I don't. Anyway.
So, and before I carry on forward, I would say we've only got a couple of scenes left, folks, but I do realize we are running pretty late here. Does anyone need to bounce, or can I wrap up this wonderful story? It's fine if they do need to bounce, by the way. Cool. Okay.
All good.
Awesome. So, you rendezvous again outside Printemps. It's a large and elaborate new building with an Art Nouveau style on the Boulevard Haussmann. It is very large and known for selling quality goods at relatively low prices to Paris's rapidly growing middle class. They seem to be busy today, handing out bouquets of violets to mark the first day of spring. The interior is laid out with the most modern of amenities, including several elevators and electric lighting throughout. Just off the main hall, the small power generator required for the lighting grinds away audibly, displayed behind a glass wall for the curiosity of the clientele. What are we doing once we're in there? I mean, Laura and Marie have already gone in there and started browsing the goods. I know that, but
Suppose we've got to try and find a manager or someone in charge.
Yeah, because it was custodian, wasn't it? Was what his job was going to be. So I think Marie will also be trying to sort of subtly ask some of the shop owners if
Sure.
they happen to know George.
Absolutely. What interpersonal skills have you got, Marie?
I've got negotiation, but that's it.
Okay. Is anyone else kind of joining her in that? I would suggest that Alex might have a very appropriate skill for spotting a supervisor.
Sure.
Oh,
Intuition?
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Other
I
Alex.
meant Alex.
In this one case, I was like, I think he might, yeah. Officialdom, indeed, should
Correct.
surely be the thing.
Theodore very quickly spots someone in a kind of very fancy button-down printemps uniform who seems to be. They're pretty clearly the one giving the orders.
I think I see the fellow in charge. Shall we go and see if there's anything to gain here?
Who is going to approach this gentleman?
I'll go along as well.
Yeah, I'll go with Theodore.
Fair enough. Madame, Monsieur, can I help you?
We were hoping you could help us find someone who we think works here as one of your custodians, friend of ours who, Mr. George Vuillet.
Oh, not someone I know. I'll get the floor manager for you. One moment. He dashes off, and a little more officious and harried woman kind of emerges from a nearby group of. I am literally blanking on what the areas of like a department store are called. Aisle.
Department?
Like an aisle. She has kind of like a clipboard and some papers, and she comes over and says, I'm sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Madame Ringard. You were asking about a custodian? Has someone caused you trouble?
No, nothing like that at all. He's a friend of ours. We've not seen him in a little while. We know he worked here, so we were hoping you might be able to point us in the right direction. It's Mr. George Vuillet.
George Vuillet. It rings a bell. Nearby, a cashier leans over and says, Madame Ringard, the gentleman making use of one of the upper warehousing rooms. He gives a wry smile. Ringard goes, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Monsieur Vuillet was very briefly a custodian here for but a few days, and then left not a few personal items in an upstairs storeroom before seeming to vanish entirely. I have not heard from him since. I assumed he found other employment or perhaps some unfortunate circumstance. Was this man an acquaintance of yours, did you say?
Yeah, he was. How long ago did this happen? And, if you need us to clear out that space for you, I'm sure we'd be happy to take his things. And
Monsieur, with your wonderful American directness, you have hit upon my exact wish. If I could show you where he has stored his possessions, and you could retrieve them and return them to him if he is to be found, and if not, I confess I did not have the heart to dispose of them. Some of them seem to have value. Sometimes people have to. I did not. I try not to judge, but if you can help me,
it's very kind of you, Madame. Yeah, of course, we'd like to help you out. How long ago did he leave all these things? And presumably he could be starting to walk.
They have been taken. She is starting to walk. They have been taking up room upstairs for 6 months now, Monsieur. 6 long months, and this is a popular store. I do not have the space. She leads you to a set of stairs which winds up and up, By the end, when you emerge onto a corridor, you must be on one of the highest floors of Printemps, perhaps 5 floors from the street. She walks along kind of a quiet, kind of soft green painted corridor, with a number of like nice wooden doors with glass in them. She stops by one of them, gets out a heavy set of keys and unlocks it, pushes it open and says, "Please, take your time. I understand if your friend has gone missing, perhaps, from the sound of it. Take your time. I will be in the office down the hall. Simply come get me when you are ready to leave. Thank you so much."
Thank you. And if any of the others who weren't like immediately with us, like hopefully I can like wave to them to like follow if they want, if they so wish.
Yeah, I've
so
assumed
that-
everyone's kind of come with you.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a look around and see what kind of stuff we've got here.
Laura kind of like nudges you in your ribs, Howie, and says in her fairly pronounced New England accent, "Good old American forthrightness."
It's got a certain charm sometimes.
Yes, even a broken clock, as I say.
I take it we're going into this room and having a look what's in there.
Yes.
The room is relatively small and cramped, barely big enough to fit all of you in. It contains an array of mundane department store custodial items, but alongside them, what seem to be more than a few possessions of George Vuillet. There is a relatively upmarket bicycle, several piles of humdrum clothing, some nondescript jewelry in a small wooden box, and there is also 2 cheap but well-made suits hanging up on a large wood-backed rack. Several books and magazines are piled on the floor as well, each of them either a politically progressive work or a relatively new treatise on the symbolist movement in art or theatre.
I am probably drawn to the books and magazines and having a bit of a skim through these. See if there's anything interesting there that I might recognize, or otherwise just, pack into, I don't know, I'll have a satchel or some sort of bag, I
Sure.
guess.
Absolutely. Is anyone else paying any attention to anything in particular or carrying out any particular task?
I'll be checking the pockets in the suits, I think, and then folding them up. And yeah.
Is there, since I haven't been able to harness the skill yet, is there anything sort of remotely mechanical or sophisticated or
the bicycle is the closest thing.
Right, okay.
It's quite a nice bicycle, actually.
So it appears to be an entirely sort of ordinary bicycle you'd expect anyone to have in Paris. It doesn't say, do anything interesting.
I'm afraid all your technology skill yields to you is the equivalent of yup, that's a bicycle.
Yeah, I'd know one anywhere. That's like perfectly.
Does it have training wheels?
This tells me the height was set at a certain.
Yeah.
It's a bicycle. It's a nice bicycle, though.
Okay. You should have stayed downstairs and stared at the generator a bit.
Yes. Yeah.
There was the. Did you say there was jewelry or?
Yeah, it's all very rude, like a simple gold ring. There's a like a silver locket that you open and doesn't have anything in it. It's just a locket. Yeah.
I'll gather up the writings, like is it books or leaflets or?
Howie has already done this.
Yeah. Oh, never mind then.
Yeah,
and
there's
the locket.
I
was going to ask if the locket. Are we talking about one that would open up to contain, say, a portrait of a person?
Yes, it's exactly like that, but it's empty.
Oh, okay.
So where's he been staying then? 6 months.
So Mark, you said you were removing the suits from the kind of like wood-backed rack, right? As you're doing so, Alex, you have intuition, right?
Yep.
You feel that the rack moving from against the wall makes an odd noise.
Okay. Alex is going to wander over to this rack and like move it back and forth so it makes the noise some more, and be like, "What is that? That's not normal."
No, it isn't. It sounds hollow.
I think there might be something behind this rack, Mark.
Hidden door? Good heavens, that's
We got a real mystery. We got a real mystery on our hands.
There's that
Okay.
word again.
The rack is quite easy to move away once you've taken the suits off it, if you want to do so.
yes.
Behind it is what seems to be a rough-hewn gap in the loose brickwork. Beyond it, darkness and dust.
Alex is gonna reach in and feel around.
Yeah, you can feel there's definitely a void back here. Like you can feel the inner brickwork, and your hand kind of comes away all dusty, and you kind of tap your foot in, and there's a floor, there's flooring there. It's just dark. That's all.
It's large enough. Is it large enough for someone to get inside, or
It's a little bit of a squeeze, but very much so.
Is there like a lantern or anything in here?
No, but if you want to have a light source, why don't you give me a preparedness roll?
Okay, I have relatively good preparedness. I'm gonna spend 3 points, I think.
Mhm.
That's a 5 total.
Okay. Yep, you absolutely have some kind of like very large strike matches, right? That you can use to give a fair bit of light. You lean in and take a look, and you can see that there seem to be a set of rickety, somewhat temporary looking stairs leading upwards in a narrow space between the walls.
I will relay this. There's stairs going up. I'm gonna go take a look.
Okay.
Maybe give me just a moment. This looks rather, well, improvised at best. I would quite like to use my architecture skill to try to discern if there is any risk of, like, this looks rather unsafe, right?
Yep, absolutely. They seem to be stairs. You've seen stairs like this many times. They're stairs used by builders on construction. They're often left between walls and in kind of voids to avoid the hassle of tearing them down. They are poorly aligned and rickety, and definitely not very sturdy. If you had to bet, you'd say that you can probably make it up there, but you'd have to be careful about it.
Right. These aren't of the best construction. Maybe just watch your step. All right.
Okay, thanks for your consent. I'll be careful. I'll be very careful.
You're not going up there alone. You're not the only one who's you're exploring this little mystery. No, not a chance you're doing that on your own.
Well, you're very welcome, Howie. 2 eyes better than, well, I guess 4 eyes better than 2.
It's your discovery, though. I'll let you go first.
Okay, so it sounds to me like Alex and Howie are going up in there. Laura is also going to say, I've not come this far, and this is a matter of American pride now. And before anyone can say anything, she ducks in behind the two of them. Are the other 4 of you just staying behind for now?
for now. I think.
Yeah, for the moment.
Sure. Yeah.
No, this tailoring. It's. I don't want to ruin it.
For now, but hovering anxiously by the stairs in case I need to run up.
Absolutely. So the 3 of you that are going up, well, 2 of you and Laura, I would like you, please, because I assume you're being careful, making your way up. I would like the 2 of you to make some athletics roll, please. And all I will say is you are well aware of the danger of this and are being very careful.
I used all but one of my athletics points before chasing off the carriage, so I'm just going to spend the one that I've got left.
Mm-hmm.
And I rolled a 4, so that's 5 total.
Okay. How about Alex?
I spent 2, but I only got 3 total because I rolled a 1.
5. The 3 of you make it up the stairs unharmed. Now, you find something at the top of these stairs. And I would like either Alex or Howie, and like I'm gonna say whoever comes up with it first is the one who says it. I would like one of you to say whatever you think your character would say, which is the equivalent of "you all better come up and look at this."
Alex is gonna say, "Dios mío," and you maybe don't say exactly what it means, but it's something that Alex says when he is extremely shocked by something.
In cross-cultural Paris, I think you will all have enough of a spattering of Spanish to know that Alex has been quite taken aback. What are we going to do down in the bottom room?
Well, as long as it was
not going to be left out,
as long as it was a sort of a curious, excited, Dios
and
mío,
it wasn't a kind of, and it certainly wasn't a kind of Dios mío. So,
I was expecting that, honestly, with that 3.
Yeah.
Then yes, I'll head up as well, carefully.
Okay. Are we doing this as a group?
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I would like you all to also make an athletics roll. And I would say that the difference between 4 people and 3 people going up at once is slightly significant, but still, you are also being careful and you are aware of, the danger.
Yeah, I mean, I was half tempted to suggest going up one at a time, honestly.
Sure.
Given.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But athletics submissions, please. And then if you could tell me your total.
3 total.
5 total.
I spent 4 points, got 7 total.
Mm-hmm.
7 total, 1 point.
Okay. While Marie briefly almost slips halfway up, person behind her, who is Blaze, manages to catch her before she takes a spill, and you all make it up to the top. And at the top, well, as I say, quite a sight. It is a peculiar space. There is an arched ceiling that seems to indicate that you are in the roof of Printemps, and several circular windows high on the walls illuminating the space with sunlight. It is the size of a more than modest apartment, and the bare wooden floors seem to have been swept clean of dust in a central area. The smell of Paris wafts in from one of the windows standing open. Clearly, this space is sealed off from the rest of this upper floor by walls and doors on both sides, both of which have heavy piles of lumber and boxes stacked in front of them to prevent anyone entering from what are presumably similar chambers in the huge attic of Printemps. In the swept central area are a number of furnishings, including an old armchair and a cot for sleeping on. A writing desk stands nearby, which looks to be stacked with a sheaf of papers on top of a relatively slim bound book. All these furnishings are arranged around a large table on which is a slightly moth-eaten gathering of plush purple fabric. A short easel stands in the center, presumably to display a painting or photograph which is now missing. And on the floor, in front of this absent object, the most disturbing of the oddness you have stumbled upon, a broad and sloppily daubed circle of strange symbols, splattered in yellow and blue paint. Within this circle, what used to be a man rests on his front, one arm outreached as if in supplication towards the table. Even those of you without any medical experience can tell that this man looks as though he has been dead for quite some time. He is wearing no clothes at all, and his back and legs look to be partially desiccated. His form overall is that of a man deprived of sustenance, with ribs showing harshly through his sides. The only smell is a slight, dusty, dry foulness. I would like everyone to make a composure check, please, having stumbled on a body in an unpleasant condition, and take that as your level.
Very glad I left someone in the tank from the last composure roll.
And if you could just give me your totals, please.
7.
Oop, got a 7 and a 5.
4.
8.
4, 8,
8.
8.
It's a 7, luckily.
Okay. You are all obviously taken aback by this, but you all hold your nerve. You hear Laura mutter under her breath, "Bloody hell."
Hell's bells. Is that George?
Blaze, for God's sake, have a look at the chap.
I will move forward.
Is everyone kind of like moving to look a bit closer at this scene? Yeah. Okay, Blaze, you have you don't have there's no investigative skill. It's like medicine or something like that, right?
No, it's quite weird.
No, but what we do have is first aid.
Yes.
And if you can give me a first aid roll, please. This is a body that's been here for some time, so it's not going to be the easiest to tell what may or may not have killed this unfortunate fellow. So that's your level there.
Okay. I don't want to spend too much in case I
someone
need
gets
it again.
Yeah,
But I'm going to spend 4 points and
Mm-hmm.
roll. Get a 4, 8 total.
Okay. Yeah. This first, this is Georges Vuillet. You can see the curly hair, you can see the scar on the forehead, although his features are as desiccated as the front. He certainly seems, at your guess, to have died of starvation or thirst or both. He's clearly withered before death. Also, the body seems to have been exposed to the elements considerably, hence the desiccation, which seems odd for the notion of being in this interior space for 2 weeks at most. You would certainly expect decomposition rather than desiccation. Either way, this seems to leave you without much further way of discovering more about the origins of the odd paintings below Saint Louis.
How the devil is this George?
And did you say that it looks like he's been dead for a couple of weeks?
I mean, if you had to guess, Blaze, this body has been here for a lot more than a couple of weeks. Desiccation
I was
takes a long
about to
time.
say, yeah, so in that case, who has been working at the hospital if it isn't George?
Or what the
Yeah,
hell
but
has
it's-
somebody done to George that makes him look like that's done this to him?
Yeah.
They gave a
I'm going-
description of this man.
I'm going to, for sure, just double check the scar on the right-hand side.
It certainly looks like what Raymond described.
It's definitely him.
Can I
So
go and have a look at
something did
the
this to him.
papers on the desk?
Absolutely. Let's
Sorry.
break out a bit. Let's see what everyone is doing. Howie has said they're going to go look at the papers on the desk, and let's just go with you first, and then we'll go with other people. So to try and fill it up. Is anyone else going to look at the papers on the desk with Howie? Cool. Okay. Yeah. You go over and look at them. Are you kind of rifling through them and getting a sense of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was hoping to see there might be something like a diary, but obviously whatever it is, I'll have a read through.
Sure. Well, the papers, they are mostly blank. Most of the papers that have been written on are just scraps of writing, one word or phrase or a half-drawn attempt, one of the symbols that are painted on the floor. The only truly legible sheets are near the bottom of the pile and contain the following. One has black stars written on it vertically across the left edge of the page. On the other edge facing it is strange moons. Another seems to have perhaps been a practice sheet, though the calligraphy is rough to say the least. It has the word tatters written from top to bottom over and over again. And the bottom sheet just contains one phrase written dead center of the page in the most coherent script you have found. It simply says, "I wear no mask."
I don't know what these are, but this is weird. And if nothing else, these the symbols on the floor, there's some of them on these papers, but there's also some weird, I don't know, ramblings or something. I wear no mask. Is it part of the play?
Look, this is all well and good, but we're not the police. So, I mean, shouldn't we tell the somebody, the school, the police? I mean, what are we even doing here?
While Howie and Theodore are having this exchange, is anyone else looking at anything else in particular?
I think that Marie would be intrigued by the easel and the symbols in front of it. First, checking the easel to see what kind of size painting it would take.
It would take the size of painting you're thinking of that it would take.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. And then also looking at the symbols in front of the easel.
Absolutely. I'm afraid your art history gives you nothing
How about
regarding
painting?
Painting similarly gives you nothing. I saw Sam come off mic there briefly, and I'm guessing that perhaps Sam wants to look at the same thing, and Sam might have an ability that works.
Yes, Alex has occultism and would be very interested in the symbols on the floor.
Absolutely. On closer examination, you see that underneath the newer symbols that are painted on are older, different symbols in white chalk. These older symbols are Rosicrucian in nature, though it has to be said a fairly poor job of replication. The newer symbols, which seem to have been painted on intentionally to obscure them, are like nothing you have ever seen or heard of. In point of fact, as you gaze on them in confusion, they become more concerning by the second, and eventually an almost migraine-like sensation grips your senses, and you have to blink and look away. When you open your eyes again to glance down, the sensation has passed. You still do not know their provenance or nature, and all you can say is that they look perhaps alchemical or astrological, with the same odd synthesis that resembles a complex numeral mixed with multiple letters.
Okay, I'll take a kind of note of what they look like as best I can in a notebook. But we'll mention that these are very strange. This is not, well, I mean, the whole thing is strange, but these symbols are not even recognizable. Like nothing I've studied or seen.
I'll still have I've got my sketchbook out, and I'm making a note of the symbols on the floor.
Okay. Is anyone else investigating anything else about the scene as I described it at first?
You said that it was really dusty.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any footprints in the dust that are relatively fresh?
On an examination of the more of the entire room, you can see that a number of things. You are drawn to the open window. It's the only open window out of the several that are there. In the dust and detritus between the window. Oops, someone's typing off.
Sorry.
Sorry. In the dust and detritus between the window and the cleared central area are what appear to be recent footprints. You also notice that outside the open window is a set of metal stairs leading down the rear of the department store, presumably for access to the roof.
Yeah, Mark would have been walking around, mulling over this.
Then you can both see this, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it seems George was living here, but accessed it through the window. But
Maybe somebody knew about that and did whatever that they did to him and took that painting.
I would say, and I'll give you this for free, just because it's Gumshoe and Yellow King encourage you that basic detective work does not require skills. Marie and Mark, I'll give you this. Those footprints look like the footprints you left coming into the center cleared area. They look fresh. They're entirely clear of dust.
I expect that those come from a certain Italian gentleman who managed to escape us earlier.
Sure.
Which would also explain the fact that this easel is empty of a painting which looks like exactly the right size to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also expect that that means that George is the one who painted those paintings. He must have been an excellent impressionist painter, but yeah, this is
I don't know
very
about
strange.
that. Maybe I was thinking what the devil was on those what was on the painting. Maybe that was inspiration for whatever these symbols are. Maybe he was copying something.
Well, we know that Maison Marcy is linked to this. We know that a number of Italians is. Perhaps we should go there now and I don't know. I confront them. That seems a bit. But there's, well, I don't know whether this is murder or just
whatever that is.
death.
It's not natural, right?
No.
Look,
is there anything that we need to check here before we inform the store and the police?
Are we going to get caught up in some police business if we obviously got to report this somehow, but are we going to get all held up if not be able to go to the Maison?
I can talk. I let me talk to them. This place, the dust, the window. We were seen entering. I can explain the situation. That's fine. You can go ahead if you need to.
It's a very sensible approach, I think, and like this is above your pay grade for this, right? This, like you say, it may be murder. With that in mind, can I safely assume, without kind of going through the role play of it, that you will leave this quite unpleasant scene? You report the situation to the floor manager and perhaps wait for the police and explain to them. You did mention that you wanted to go to a possibility of going to Maison Marcy yourself. Do you want to do this, or are you reporting that information to the police?
I'm happy for people to report, but I definitely want to go myself. And can I have? I know I said I packed up the books at the lower level, but can I have also pocketed the papers that we found upstairs as well?
Yes, you can absolutely pocket those papers. Okay, we're going to kind of wrap up now, but it's not going to be, and that's the end, right? Let's explore this a bit, okay? So the first thing I would say, as you're leaving this attic space for the first time, Alex, you have intuition, yes? Before you do so, before you leave, you're the last to leave, and you kind of like wrinkle your brow a second and glance over at the writing desk. You could have sworn that there was a book there when you first entered, but Howie picked up all the papers and didn't mention a book. Maybe you were mistaken. You head on down the stairs. You report the incident. The floor manager is shocked and alarmed. The police arrive. You discuss it with them. I think it's an important point. Do you mention your suspicion of Maison Marcy? Do you try and connect the dots for the police?
Unless anybody tells me not to, I think I would.
I think I also would.
That seems like enough people that we're not going to try and hide this. The police, the gendarme, hear from what you have to say, and they strongly encourage you not to pursue this matter any further. And they will take these concerns, and they will, if Maison Marcy has sent someone to steal this painting, it will be dealt with. They basically tell you, sit the fuck down. We'll take care of this. Bearing that in mind, would anyone still go?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just give me a quick hands up if you're going to be one of the people who goes to check out the place. Okay. So the four of you do investigate Maison Marcy. You arrive probably the next day, because by that time, it was quite late in the day when you discovered the unfortunate remains of Georges. And essentially, you arrive at the antique store and art gallery Maison Marcy in Popincourt. It is closed. Would you attempt to knock on the door, you think? You might.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You receive no response but a brief ruffling of lace curtains on an upper floor.
Well, someone's in.
They clearly are. I'm assuming we're not going to commit burglary.
No.
Assuming.
A bold
Okay.
assumption.
Then that line of inquiry will be pushed aside for now. On your return to, do you think you would return to San Luis or the school first?
I would be suggesting that now we have the information that Maison Marcy is up to no good. That could well help us with sealing the bid for the artwork.
Sure.
I was about to say, yeah, I want to secure that negotiation, please.
Absolutely. You return to San Luis. Tell Kadeen of some of the, perhaps some but not all, I'm guessing, of the details.
I'll at least say there's been suspicious activity.
Right. Absolutely. Kadeen informs you that Louis Marcy withdrew his bid earlier today. Thanked Kadeen for the opportunity, but said that he'd been unexpectedly called to England. The hospital is therefore very pleased to accept the school's offer. The remaining works will be transferred to the department forthwith. Perhaps that evening, after retiring to Le Vaugras, you are greeted with enthusiasm by both Pierre and Hildred, and your mood inevitably swings upwards after the unpleasant discoveries of the day, braced by a rousing musical performance from a local troubadour and the pleasant sting of absinthe and wine. Laura stays for a single drink, then begs your forgiveness as she leaves to an early night's sleep. Sam, you have intuition, right?
Let me check. Yes, I do.
Before she steps out of the door, Laura grasps at the large purse at her side, as if reassuring herself that something is still in it. It is an odd, stilted movement that's almost desperate and anxious in nature. A smile of relief crosses her face, and she steps out into the Parisian night. And that's the end of our first session. There we go. That ran on a hell of a lot. And apologies to the people viewing. Maybe you got sick of it. Who knows? I hope it was worth it. From my perspective, I really enjoyed running that, which is why I was like, I can't split it in two. So there we go. As usual, if you have comments or questions, sling them in the chat. We will deal with them. Obviously, we'll try and kind of do that a bit rapidly, given, it's late. But please do that. In the meantime, check the video description below. There's links to all the usual stuff, our sites, our socials, our Discord, our Patreon, blah, 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 blah. We're running a bunch of campaigns at the moment. Warhammer and We Deal in Lead on Mondays. Wednesday is Simbrooms. Yellow King, this is fortnightly on Thursday, so we won't be playing next week, but we will be back the week after that. We also do one-shots on a mostly monthly basis. The next one is on Sunday, the 9th of June, and is Cloud Empress, which we are excited about. With all that in mind, while John readies the comments and stuff, do the players have any questions or anything they want to ask me? I know a lot of the time we have Cincinnati Chronicles veterans here, and they're going to go, okay, Matt, how much of that was weird, obscure, historical, actual shit? And let me tell you, more than a little. So I'll open the floor to the players first, and then we'll jump into chat.
How much of it was weird historical shit that you added and wasn't already like part of the reference book?
An awful lot of that stuff, which seemed like, oh, that's a very precise little detail, was historical stuff. Example: Prantom actually handed out bouquets of violets on the first day of spring every year. The play that I said they were rehearsing for, that is a play that theatre company did produce at that time of the year, and Henri Toulouse-Lautrec did do the set dressing for it. And I leapt a little bit into things going, oh, that's a cool that seems like a logical thing. And then you just go, oh shit, there's this whole really interesting detail about this that actually happened, because Paris in 1895 was basically entirely populated by famous people. So lots of little bits and pieces like that. Oh, and obviously all the stuff about the ceiling space and Jordan, all that's completely 100% true. Of course it's not, but I would say that ending and that chamber are partially inspired by wonderfully slightly creepy stories of people finding out that people have been living in random wall spaces in department stores, and that's partially what that was inspired by. But obviously that specifically didn't happen. And obviously there wasn't a mysterious trove of reality warped arts found in the basement of.
Oh, that was the thing I assumed was the most real. I didn't even question that.
Sure.
I'm kind of curious to see how much stuff is going to be, because I know they're the idea is that this be largely self-contained stories, but potentially a bit of an overarching kind of thread.
There will absolutely
there's obviously
be
a few things
meta
here
plot.
that we've. Yeah, so there's obviously some stuff, like there's obviously that little, like, you know, what's Laura gonna put, what's she up to, but like, you know, there's obviously that thing with the Maison where we haven't been able to explore. Like, I'm kind of curious to see how much like what, I don't have a sense yet of like what will be the threads that like we're like picking up or not picking. Yeah, I'm kind of curious because it seems like there's so much there in everything that happened, and
I mean,
it was very cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
You know me, you were there in Cincinnati Chronicles. Almost everything that I put in, I intend to come back to it or reference in some way, or that it's just a reference that I fucking just liked putting in for my own smug self-satisfaction. A lot of what we do, I'm not going to say you're going to get answers to everything, because I don't like to fall down the lost trap of ruining a good mystery by giving a shit answer. So some stuff will remain unanswered. Some stuff will remain unanswered for your characters, but at the end of the arc, you can ask me and I'll tell you what happened. And other stuff, I don't know, because this is King in Yellow shit. There's some weird ass stuff that's going to happen, and I might not even have the answers. But generally speaking, yes, I have started a ball rolling on a meta plot, and by the end of it, you will understand a lot more of what happened in this session, even though each one will be a little individual story of its own. And hopefully shorter than this one.
Oh, it's great. Love it.
But now I know that you'll happily go till 20 past 11. I'm going to exploit that thoroughly. So I think it's better because it's fortnightly. It's less of a hit, right?
I think we will go until 20 past 11.
Sure.
Will the cats go until 20 past 11? Because they've been out in strength tonight.
This one's going till whenever, I think.
Oh.
So there we go. Anything else from the players before we crack on into the chat?
I listened to the Repair of Reputations just prior to, so I am.
Then you're quite excited about a particular name I dropped. Yep. Moving on. The Repair of Reputations is one of the stories in the short story collection called The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers, which is where the King in Yellow comes from, and the whole notion of the various legendarium surrounding that. Lovecraft was very inspired by it, which is why it's kind of been folded into the Cthulhu mythos. And a character from the Repair of Reputations turned up in our story tonight.
I need to reread it.
Well, they're the main character in it, so you didn't read it clearly enough, obviously.
I just don't remember names.
Steve said, it's probably just AI generated. Count the fingers on the hands. I think that was after the Arch of San Lucrece, right? Yeah. It was, just a bit weird and off. What's going on with that? It's probably a bad forgery. Fine, clearly. Next. Night Bites. Wow, that burn. Relatively talentless social butterfly. Ouchie. Yeah. That's the professor's pretty harsh. Speaking of the professor, that's an interesting thing. Anyone recognize the name?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you like your art. Yeah, so I thought you might.
I like.
If anyone's, I will try.
I
and
like
share
that painting specifically.
And I hope we won't get demonetized if I share it. It's probably a small enough image that it's probably fine. Fuck it, it's only one video.
It's fine.
I mean, I'm very much assuming that people, if not familiar with the name, are familiar with this painting. There's also a very famous painting he did of gladiatorial combat, and lots of other things. As I say, in the 1880s, he was the most famous painter in the world. And in fact, you saw him practicing for this because he painted this and other similar images in 1895 and 1896. So there we go. And perhaps also it might have some metaphorical relevance. Moving on. Mossalotl, the Sports Direct mug's out. It's serious now. I don't even know who that's in reference to because I don't like to look at my filthy players when I'm playing.
It is me. It's my fault.
Well, I mean, you're a Sports Direct guy. I definitely think that of you.
There's basically no sport I'm not into, famously.
It's true. We once participated together in what could be called a sport.
It is a sport.
Construed,
It
roughly.
was so sports that Alex broke my finger.
It's never gonna let it go. You'd think it
I
would be
can't even
easier with
remember.
a
Was it
broken
my
finger, but
or my thumb. I think it was my thumb, right?
it was
It was
your
your little
pinky.
finger.
Was it my little finger?
It was
Yeah.
your
It was your
pinky.
little finger.
Yeah, it was the
Clearly-
most dramatic of all possible injuries.
Clearly, it upset
Because
me enough that
I remember it was your little finger, one, because it turned purple, and two, because it meant
Yeah.
you had to walk around like this for like the
Yeah.
next couple of days,
like a Shakespearean,
including walking down the street to go to the hospital.
Yeah, like a doofus. Yeah, it was mostly my fault. So, moving on. 42. It belongs in a museum. Well, the professor certainly doesn't think so. I think the idea of his that that it would be wasted, because museums have a strong history of acquiring art and then not displaying it, right? Whereas
Yeah.
he's like, we would put it on exhibition and we would study it and all this sort of things. That's certainly not so much his point of view, but yeah. Next. Steve, first rule of negotiation. These are crap. I'd be doing you a favor taking them off your hands. I'm surprised no one went.
Yeah, I
Kick
was
the tires a little bit.
internally wincing when the first thing we said was like, "Wow,
These are amazing.
masterful. These are
So,
These are like
The
masterwork."
reasoning was simply because we'd already been told that they'd bidded higher than us, at which point I was like, well, okay, I
Yeah,
might as
right,
well
yeah.
go hard on the cultural value because that's the only thing we
Yeah,
have.
yeah, for sure. Next, what we got? Paris version of Harrods. Sure.
I was thinking parrots. Yeah,
I did say that Printemps is the Parisian version of Harrods. I'm not 100% sure of that, and maybe any French viewers can correct me on. I think I've definitely heard of Printemps, and I wouldn't expect to be able to hear of like a shop unless it was kind of upmarket in another country.
It may be
So-
more the French version of Liberty rather than
Yeah,
Harrods.
or like Waitrose, or something like that. But yeah, either way, it's real. All the details about the building were real, like the generator behind the glass wall, the electric lighting, the elevators, all that stuff.
All of our French viewers are going to be coming after you now for not
Although
having
it
an
doesn't-
accurate enough.
Absolutely,
analogy.
it doesn't look like that anymore. Incidentally, it was rebuilt. Parisian Tesco, don't kick food. A little bit more upmarket than that, I think. A little bit more upmarket. Nothing against Tesco. A little bit upmarket. Next, Sam, Pro Thumb Wars. Was this just in reference to breaking my pinky? Is that
Yeah.
It must be.
Yeah, that
The
you're
sport
right.
Yeah,
you're
the
playing
sport
must have
thing that you
been
do.
Pro
That
Thumb Wars.
definitely was a sport. You know what? I think actually really old viewers might have seen the equipment for the sport in the background of my stream in older streams. So there you go. It's
You
not
are being so cryptic about this. What happened?
We have
we
also
did-
mentioned it on
It's-
stream
but,
before.
we have also mentioned on stream.
It's
I'm
like what
it's
Matt was
just
saying,
for fun.
though.
I'm just being
It's-
cryptic for fun. It was HEMA. It was sword fighting. We were sword
I was going to say, like, if
Yeah.
we get to 5,000 subscribers, then
fighting. Then we'll.
Oh, wow,
no,
the
you
moment's
we'll
ruined
fight-
that.
we were fighting with dummy long swords, which can still deal a hefty crack to your pinky. And Alex at the time was relatively inexperienced, and I was being very
Aggressive.
very aggressive.
You were-
enthusiastic, and, like,
and
you were-
it was like 90% my fault.
You were
So
kind of charging
And-
me with a flurry, and I was just
It-
desperately backpedaling and
it was
trying
true.
to.
It was
yeah.
true.
And you
We
were
have-
just wearing
we have a
leather
raid.
gloves.
I was just wearing leather. I wasn't wearing proper protection either. I was being very dumb. Oh, Orc Skull,
Hello.
very much. Thank you for the raid. People always, this is not a complaint by any standards. People always raid us after we've finished playing and are in the end discussion. We're super grateful. I'm sorry if this is really weird and boring, but if you are interested, feel free to watch right from the beginning. Because it's been kind of a self-contained story today, is right? Like people would like probably get it. Ooh, look at all those wonderful people. Hello, Orc Skull. We are wonderful. Thank you. No. Don't be sorry. It is not your bad. It is wonderful to see people raid, no matter when it is. So thank you so much. We've been playing the Yellow King. It's a spooky cosmic horror tabletop role-playing game. If you're interested, it's been a bit of a self-contained story as the first episode. wind back onto the beginning and check it out. Thank you so much. Trying to raid more, but suck at it. We're terrible at raiding. I don't think we've ever raided, or only like once. We're awful at it, so you are ahead of us. 42. Why is 7 players recommended for this? 7 players are recommended for this because each different player has a different set of investigation abilities, and they're all. If you get 7 players, you have them all. There are some other reasons to do with like the transitions between the different arcs and the different like historical settings that they have, but I won't go into those. It's a bit spoilery. But basically, if you want a complete set of skills, you have 7 players, and that's what it recommends. We could only muster 6 people who like me, so we couldn't we couldn't get the 7th. So we are missing one, and the character of Laura Hilton is that 7th class, so she's kind of backfilling that role a little bit. You can also buy those skills with like XP and stuff later, and also the skill miscellany that Steve has kind of is meant to cover any that you don't have. So like it's not too rough, right? But that's the idea. 7 players, but we've got 6, which is nearly 10, and is a lovely number. And also when you get to 7 players, it's like there's so many people who need to talk, so it's all good. Have we got anything else, John?
That is everything apart from thank yous. Ooh.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I forgot to do the bloody thank yous yesterday, didn't I? But thank you to the following people. Some of you may have had thank yous already, but I'm going to repeat them because I love you all. Thank you for the follows to Frankie Doom, Akantiga, Ales and Cures, My Name is Twiggy, Depleted Uranium Cowboy, which is a wonderful name, Orc Skull, thank you for the follow in the raid. Also, thank you to Steve for resubscribing on Prime. And again, thank you to Orc Skull for raiding. And I think that's everyone for now. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much, folks. We will see you again for Yellow King in a fortnight's time. But we will return on what's on Monday? Is it Warhammer? Or is it We Deal in Lead?
We Deal in Lead.
We Deal in Lead on Monday. So check that out. Thank you so much, my players. Thank you so much to all the people viewing. Take care, stay safe, and we will see you again very, very soon. Farewell.